What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show.
It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, very cold. It was in California. There was a scene that required a helicopter, and the bird had landed. The pilot briefed everybody. I'll never forget this, man. It was me, Dale, and Mike standing there. The helicopter was warming up, blades were turning, and I said, "Who's been in a helicopter crash?" So he'd been in a helicopter crash, and Mike was in a helicopter crash in Ranger Battalion. And so I'm like, well, I haven't been in one, so I'm gonna go first. We went and did our scene. When we landed, Mike was standing there. And I literally said before I left, you just guys figure out who's going next. Mike went on the bird. So I walked in, I heard the bird take off, and about 5 minutes later, this young lady came in, hysterical, crying that she said she heard on the radio that the helicopter just crashed. And I'm like, give me a set of keys. We had a bunch of cars, and I knew where they were going to film. It was like this dried out lake bed. So I drive down into it, and I'm looking, I don't see anything, and I go up on the hill, I don't see anything. So I drive back down, and as I'm driving across, I look out, and I see a flashlight. So I get out of the car, and I start walking, and as I'm walking, I'm getting closer, and I can start seeing pieces of...
Take your time, man.
It's to this day, it's so hard, man. It's really hard. Yeah.
4.840?
Yes, sir. Well, dude, look at my legs. I got short, muscular legs. Like, I got really fast twitch muscle. Like, I'm built for sprinting. Yeah, I'm built for sprinting.
But how old are you? 59?
58.
God.
Yeah.
That is...
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, straight up, man.
Absolutely.
The guys are like, what the f? Yeah.
That's, I mean,
yeah.
To run that fast at that age.
I was kind of shocked myself.
What were you running in your prime?
Dude, I'll be honest with you. I never timed myself in the 40.
When did you get time recently?
This was like in the summer, this summer.
Wow.
Yeah.
4.8.
Yes, sir. I ride my bike around this track. This baseball field has 4 baseball diamonds, and there's a track, and they were down there. I'm like, what are they doing? So I went down there, and I walked up to the guy. I said, would you let me just, he's like, yeah, go ahead. And so I ran it like 5 times, and my last 2 times are like 4.87, 4.88.
Wow.
Yeah. And I asked him, he's like, that'll get you hired here. And these are college athletes. They're 20 years old, man. Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd like to talk about that. I'd like to give and why that's important to me and why people should listen.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Because I don't know what your goal is for this particular one, but you know what your goal is.
I have no goal. I just go in. I go into these exactly like what it is. We just start talking and we go where we go.
That
but
works.
Last time worked really well. How big did you say your gun safe is? Like how many do you have?
I have 1 gun safe. I need more.
I was gonna say, how many guns do you have though?
I have a few.
What's a few? We talking 10? Talking a hundo?
No, not 100. Maybe more than 30.
It's enough.
Yeah.
It's enough to be a dangerous little militia.
But listen, here's the deal with me. Like, I don't buy junk. So I save my pennies. You know, I everything, when it comes to like working guns, I call them, they have to be reliable. And if you
How do you determine that?
Quality, you know, the quality of the gun, the machining, who's making them. Like, I'm not going to name companies now. Obviously, I'll get more hate mail than I can handle. But anyway, but there are companies out there that just make guns, and their prices are reflected in that. You know, there's a big difference between an $800 M4 and an $1,800 M4.
Sure,
big, and it shows in the accuracy and in the way the gun's made and the reliability, and it can eat any kind of ammo, any kind of mags, that kind of shit.
What was your favorite gun to carry when you were active in Ground Branch?
Well, we were issued H&K 416s, which is what
pull that up.
Is what H&K 416 is what CAG carries and Dev Group carries, and we were issued it. And I'll be honest with you, man, you stick a can on that thing and an optic and an IR laser, it gets heavy. It's a heavy gun. I carried it a few times, and I literally went back one day and I'm like, hey, I just give me a freaking 10-inch Colt. They're like, really? I'm like, yep. I old school. And a lot of times I carried an AK 47 or an AK 74. But yeah, we were issued H&K 416s.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably carried a few in your day.
Yeah.
Few
And it's a
different
piston,
types.
and it's a piston-driven gun. So there's a difference between a piston-driven gun and basically a gas gun.
Here's an HK 416
Yeah,
on the
it.
screen.
Mm-hmm.
You like Hecker and Koch?
Yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, they're German. I mean, they're expensive guns. That's why regular soft units don't carry them. That's why regular SEAL teams and special forces and MARSOC, they don't carry them. They're very, very expensive.
Yeah, you hear a lot of guys who served in the special forces or Navy SEALs talk about some of the weapons they carried, and they're not even trying to be dramatic, but they're like it was like a family member because it was their protector.
Yeah,
it was the thing that maybe they're wandering around on missions for 3 years in one place, and that's what they know. That's what keeps them alive.
Yeah, and that's why you're very careful handling someone else's gun. Like, they have it dialed in exactly the way they want it. You don't mess around with another guy's firearm. You just don't. And so it's kind of like an unwritten rule, but yeah.
Well, last time you were here, we had you in back in, I think, June, and blew up. People like hearing from you because people hadn't really heard from you in a while. And one of the things that I was kicking myself that we didn't get to, that I knew we could touch a little bit on camera, but we didn't get to it because you had to catch a flight, was some of the bullshit you dealt with about 8-9 years ago. So I wanted to make sure we got to that right at the beginning today so that you could talk about it a little bit. But essentially, and again, people are going to have to understand some things legally. There's things signed you can't talk about. But essentially, you had this long, amazing career that you outlined in our last episode, and you did a lot of years in the military, but then did around a decade in Ground Branch, which is basically an off-record CIA kill team, if that's what you want to call it. And after doing that, you went and starred on Dual Survival, which was a show on Discovery Channel. You were excellent in that. Obviously, it's exactly what it sounds like. You'd be dropped into these crazy places, and you'd have to figure out how basically you're gonna survive and live off the land. And so I think that was about 4 years you were on that show, give or take?
Yeah, I did 4 seasons.
Okay. What ended it was when you had a nasty-ass campaign run against you online where people, I'll just say who were behind some blank accounts spreading rumors that then these rumors, which were ridiculous, that ranged from everything from, I think they even accused you of murder and stuff at some point, some crazy shit. Accused some stuff, called your mom names, awful things as well, like just terrible things. And it was not vetted by the public, and so people ran with these stories about you, and for a while there, it ruined your life.
Sure.
And you eventually had to bring, and I'm doing a lot of talking right here because Joe can't, in case you haven't caught that drift. But eventually, you had to file a serious lawsuit, pay all the money out of your pocket. I'm not going to say who it was against, but we'll say it was at least against the people who were perpetrating this. And I will leave it here. You won out of court on that. And it still, I mean, we all know lawyers' fees. We all know what that was and everything. But what pissed me off about this is I hate it when I see the military eat their own. And for a guy like you, who had given his life to the country, in my opinion, and who had done some crazy things that most people never get to do because, frankly, they're not qualified to do it. Shut your mouth, did your work, and could be ruined like that by people from behind a keyboard. I don't accept that. I think that's crazy. And I will tell you, I had a lot of military people in my DMs when you would come on. And again, I was kicking myself for not having talked about this on the podcast. But I gave it right back to them. And I got to be honest, to their credit, a lot of people shut the fuck up. Once I went through what really went on here, they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. So that's kind of me laying the groundwork. But if there's anything you are able to say, because again, there are some legal documents that were signed for confidentiality when you settle out of court and stuff. But if there's things you'd like to add, I'd definitely like to give you that chance at the beginning of this podcast.
Yeah. So the very long story short of it was when I first got on Dual Survival, some things started coming out online about me that were very detrimental. And it ranged from, like you just said, that I was a convicted felon, I was a murderer and a rapist. I mean, pretty much everything you could call somebody
Yes.
from a felon standpoint, I was called. I was also being told that people were saying that I was kicked out of the Marines, I was kicked out of the Army, and dishonorable discharge, and all this just awful things. Very hurtful. At first, it made me angry, but then it turned into hurtfulness because it all started from one individual that I was actually really good friends with. And I guess what I'd like to just say to the people that are listening is this. One, I was forced to file a lawsuit. I tried to talk to these individuals and say, hey, look, why are you doing this? Let's talk about this like adult human beings, right? And the more I tried to talk to them about it, the more infuriated they got. Which to this day, I just can't quite wrap my head around it.
Do you think they just went like crazy, or?
Well, one person started the whole thing, and what I'd like to say about when it comes to money and the little fame that I had, notoriety, all of that stuff, it's a drug to some people. And what I mean by that is if you have like a narcissistic personality or something, that's like pure cocaine to people like that.
Yeah.
So, and then you add some jealousy, the worst of human emotions, add that into the mix. And that's what happened. And it was a combination of all these things. And I really tried to avoid the lawsuit because if anybody has been in a lawsuit, it is literally like walking through hell. Knowing that you're going to come out the victor. I mean, even when I showed my attorney what was going on, he's like, I've never seen anything like this before. And he says, this is a pretty much a slam dunk. Of course, attorneys can't say, oh, you're going to win. Right. Of course they can't. But when they say this is a slam dunk, and it was, like just saying, for example, that I'm a convicted felon. Well, that's pretty easy to prove that I'm not. All you got to do is pull up my NCIC report. Right. I've got driving with expired tags, et cetera, speeding, but, murder. I mean, come on. And it's just, the sad thing is, Julian, is the thing that hurts me even to this day is a person that actually really believes that. Like, how could you believe that I'm even walking around and not in jail, for starters? Yeah. Like, okay, let's just go there for now. And of course, people out there were saying, well, no joke, dude, I have the screenshots that I paid off the judges. Let me tell you something. Elon Musk don't have enough money to pay all that crap off. Yeah. But anyway, that's what they were saying. And can you believe people believe that?
Yes, I can. Haven't seen the internet and how it behaves. I can see how people would run with those things. I mean, Alessi and I have witnessed it in the studio with the types of things people run with. Yeah.
But anyway, I tried to avoid it. I didn't want to go down that road, but it got to a point where it was getting to critical mass, and it had cost me some contracts and some endorsements. And I spoke to my family and my friends, and they're like, look, you have no choice but to do this right now. So I filed a lawsuit, and I'm not going to get into details about it. All I can tell you is they settled out of court for an undisclosed amount of money.
They didn't have a ton of money, that person.
I don't know their financials. It was several individuals. But let me just say this. If you were to put $20 million on the table and said, here's $20 million bucks, but for that $20 million, this is what you're going to go through for the next 2 years, I'd have been like, you can stick that where the sun don't shine. Yeah. That's how bad it was. And, it took a physical toll on me. It took an emotional toll on me. It was a very dark part of my life because just like you said, this didn't come out of the blue from some idiot that I didn't know. And it's true. And I don't mean to say this in a disparaging way, but unfortunately I've seen it before. Yeah. This special operations community at times each their own.
Yes.
And I can give you examples. I'm not, but they're pretty easy to find. Guys that work together, they turn on each other. I'm sure you've even interviewed people, like, and these are good
Off
people.
camera, a lot of stuff. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And it boils down to, in my opinion, jealousy, some narcissism, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And, but yeah, man, it was an awful time. And for those of you who are listening, I challenge you, I think you can spend $20 or $25 and you can do a background check on someone. If you're a convicted felon, it's out there. Okay. Yes. Please do so.
It wasn't even creative, some of the stuff they came up with.
Oh,
it's
no.
Like, this is like.
But wait, hold on a second. It was actually very creative.
No, I'm talking like the stuff, murder. Like, when you're doing that. But the other stuff, I'd talk about this.
And it went into my military career that I had forged my DD-214s and and then I was dishonorably discharged.
What's a DD-214?
It's where all it's basically your discharge paperwork. It shows the unit you were in, the dates of service, schools you've been to, your discharge, whether it's honorable, dishonorable, medals and awards and all that stuff. And so the big thing, here was the big thing. The big thing that these individuals were accusing me of was stolen valor. Okay?
Yeah.
Stolen valor, and again, don't take my word for it. Google it.
Can you point the mic up at you a little more? Sorry.
Stolen valor is when a person says they've got, and it's a list of awards like Medal of Honor, Navy Cross, Silver Star, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, saying you have one of those when you don't, and you actually use it to like monetize yourself. Or you're just, guys, let me just tell you right now, I don't have medals. I have the been there, done that medals, but I don't have a Bronze Star or Silver Star. I was never in combat in the military, and we talked about that.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything
don't have any.
afterwards.
Don't have any.
Yeah.
So everybody listen. Okay. I don't have medals from being in combat, but that's what they were saying. That I was a stolen valor. That is a complete and utter lie.
For people really quickly who haven't heard you speak before and don't know your background, can you just explain how you went to CIA ground branch and what that is? Meaning, like, it's not on the record,
right?
Per se.
So I was in the Marines and the Army, and so of course, when you're in the military, you do get awards if you deserve them, whether it's a Good Conduct Medal or Bronze Star, Silver Star, whatever, right? So you get medals in the military. When I was recruited for ground branch, I was contacted by the recruiter, met him, and we talked about this in the last.
You don't have to tell the whole thing, but
and went through the whole process. Did the polygraph and everything, and made it to the operator's course. Went through a 6-month and 2-week operator course, and then came out the other end and was operational. But basically, ground branch is when I was in, they called it SAD.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Special Activities Division. Now I believe they call it the SAC, Special Activities Center. I may be wrong, but when I was there, it was the Special Activities Division, Special Operations Group, and it's basically the CIA's paramilitary arm that conducts covert action.
It's the goodbye team.
Well, but Julian, understand something. The idea doing that kind of work is to capture people, to get them to talk.
Mm-hmm.
So they talk about this. Okay, well, we know where this guy's at, and you connect the dots. Now we know where this. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard talking with a hole in your head. So the whole.
But let's be fair. It's both.
If they fight back, sure, it sure is. Yeah, of course. You're not going to put your team at risk. Yeah, if they fight back, they're gonna get what's coming to them. But the idea is normally to try to capture these people, right, and to get intel from them. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But anyway, the SAD is the action arm of the agency. It's very, very small. People have asked me, well, how many guys are there? Well, I had the balls enough to ask one time. And I asked one of the case officers that was attached to ground branch, very smart guy, been there for a long time. And he said, I'll just say less than 100. That's what he said. And he wouldn't even tell me.
Very exclusive.
Less than 100.
Yeah.
It's very small. But with being that small, what you have is a very nimble, quickly deployed, unit that doesn't have to deal with the bureaucracies and the chain of command that you would have in a military soft unit, right? They don't fall under the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They don't fall under the Geneva Convention. It's not a military unit. It's comprised of former military guys, former tier 1 guys and tier 2 guys and whatnot. But when I say they don't play by any rules, that is kind of correct. Of course, there's rules to everything, but the rules that they play by, if you were to apply that to the military, you would be in a world of trouble, because you're dealing what's called Title 50, which is a U.S. code that allows, that granted power to the CIA to conduct covert action on the behalf of the United States government. And covert action by nature and by definition is any operation that the United States does not want to have a hand in.
Right.
So you have that plausible deniability. It's very tough to do that with a military soft unit because it's such a, when you do operations, like when a tier 1 unit does operations, right? Whether it's Delta or SEAL Team 6, they've got huge air assets packages. They have AC-130s and DAPs and QRFs and big signature, right? And rightly so. You got to protect your guys. But when it comes to what I used to do, that even though they had all the money in the world, right? The agency's got billions of dollars.
You don't say.
Yeah, they do. They took that signature and went and just shrunk it down to nothing.
Guys, if you're still watching this video and you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please take 2 seconds and go hit it right now. Thank you.
So, for example, if you and I were going to hit a compound and we get into a really bad situation, there's no calling in an AC-130 to drop a 105 to save our bacon. There's no QRF. There's no DAPs flying in. There's no nothing. You fight your way in, you fight your way out. And I've talked to guys in the soft community and are like, that's bullshit. Well, not really. If you know the rules of the game going into the game, you have every right to say, you know what, I don't want to do this. And I have met guys that I would have never worked there. Never. And I get it because, you want that support. That protects your guys. But unfortunately, it's not something that they can afford to do to keep that plausible deniability down. Because all it takes is one American helicopter to get shot down somewhere. Like, now who are all these people here? Like,
yes.
What do you do?
And this is at the heart of the issue for you, because what you are is you're officially unofficial, right? So when people were causing all these problems online that led to all this stuff, they're pointing at your military career, which, as you already laid out in the last episode, you spent, I think it was 12 or 13 years, Army and Marines.
Approximately.
Right? Okay. And in that time, you didn't see combat, which made you very surprised when you were then recruited to Ground Branch, where you spent a decade and saw a lot of combat.
Right.
But because that's the part that it's officially unofficial, people can just try to point to your career and say, well, this guy never saw combat or something, and then try to lead with claims on that. And we even saw, and we've used it a few times, but the term "eat your own," we've seen, this is the ultimate case of that, because you saw it with you getting kicked out of the Special Forces Association, all that. It's real. It's very, very sad to me. And so I was honored that after years of you mostly sitting on the sidelines, conducting your business, doing your thing down in North Carolina, you came on and were open about your career with us in the last episode, and I really appreciate that. And I'm glad that we have got this thing to a point where we can give something like that a platform, and we can hear from the man himself to actually get him to describe exactly what this was and how it happened. And again, you can't go into all the details. That is how it is. But I really appreciate you being open about it and running through it.
I mean, it's, of course it's embarrassing and it's hurtful. Yeah. That individuals would go to the level that they did. For example, one of the things I was getting hammered on is I was calling myself a combat veteran, right? And they're like, well, you can't call yourself a combat veteran unless you were in the military. And so I said, okay, fine. I was doing direct action combat operations. What am I supposed to call myself? A combat, what I was saying, something like a combat contractor or something like yeah, like, what do you want me to say? And it made some people irate.
Yeah.
And I said, fine. And guys, you can go online and look, I said it a million times. I was not in the military doing what I was doing. And I had pictures of online of me being downrange and, and people still like, you're not a combat veteran. You have never seen combat in the military. Yep, you're right. I never did, but I did over here. So it was a play on words.
With CIA.
Yeah, it was a play on words, and it stirred people's emotions, and it got people pissed off. And it was just like this, it was like this little whirlwind that just got out of control. And, yeah, dude, I had death threats and all kinds of stuff. It was really, but I will tell you something funny, and we'll move on. This is actually kind of a funny story. So I was home one day and my phone rings, and it's a buddy of mine, and he's like, "Hey, Joe, are you sitting down?" And I'm like, "No, but do I need to be?" And he's like, "Yeah, probably." And I'm like, "Oh, freaking, here we go." He goes, "Get in front of your computer." He goes, "I'm going to send you an email." I'm like, "All right, go ahead." And so I'm sitting there, and this email pops up, and it had an attachment. And I open this attachment, and I'm sitting there, and it's this hot chick. I'm like, "All right, dude, it's this hot girl. What's the big deal?" He's like, "Hey, dumbass, that's you." I'm like, "What?" So I grab my glasses, and I'm like, "Oh my God, dude, they had literally taken my face, my beard off, and Photoshop me on a woman's body and put out there that I used to be a woman."
Come on.
Dude, I was hot, bro.
Wait, you were hot at it, or you were
I was hot
as a woman,
dude. I was like, wow. I was like, damn. But anyway, dude, it got that bad. It got that bad. I was, dude, it's so
Back
funny.
in 2015, they were that good with the airbrush?
Bro, I'm telling you, if you would have saw it, it was, I mean, even had the hair, and they could have.
So you're saying you would have fucked yourself?
Man, I'd have tapped it. All right. Next question. But anyway, dude, I laughed my ass off. It was so funny because I thought, oh my God, is this all you have to do with your time?
Apparently.
And it was really funny, but it kind of made things put into perspective,
yes.
Like how desperate are these people?
It's sad, Joe.
Yeah, that you have to Photoshop a picture of me as a one, like,
yeah.
But I was pretty hot,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm thinking about some of the stuff we got to talk about on the phone that we're not going to talk about today. But what I'll say to people is that it's a gut punch. It's a gut punch in every way. And I had a chance to talk with one of your main witnesses that was going to be used in that lawsuit before they settled it, and just hearing him go through this stuff because he did it with you, and he's just like, this is
they
crazy.
Started attacking everybody, like anybody that I was talking to, and anyway, I forked out a lot of apologies to people, like, "Hey, I'm sorry, people are contacting you," and it was really again, it was hurtful. I could expect that from a complete stranger, but when it comes internally,
it hurts.
Bro.
Yeah.
It was really rough.
My buddy Ryan Tate, who I've had in here, he's coming back in as well.
It was intense.
Now that was like right before we got out of Zakawi, right?
Yes, and I chased them too. This was badass. So we have this vehicle checkpoint, and out of nowhere, and it comes in on the radio, and then there are Amtrak tanks, the amphibious tanks, just flying over the Euphrates River.
He's run this organization you and I talked about, VetPaw, which is unbelievable what they do. Mm-hmm. It's a bunch of U.S. veterans who work hand in hand with the African governments. Yeah, you got the mug right now.
Yeah, right there.
Right there. Shout out VetPaw. But they work with the African governments on anti-poaching measures, because poaching is this horrible industry that is funded by foreign governments usually.
Sure.
They even pay terrorist groups on the ground to do this. It's not just like your regular guys trying to eat for, get food and kill animals to be able to feed their families. It's not that simple. And, he went through very similar things a couple years into Vetpal. And it almost, they're years past that now, but at the time it was a disaster. And some of these guys who make these claims, they're still public and they don't live in America, which makes it really difficult.
Sure.
They live in Australia and I think the UK. And they just run around and they say these things and then people believe it. And what happens is, sometimes it's also, I don't think this is relevant to your situation. This was more just a personal attack, but you look at some of these other ones, it's also the enemy funding that stuff. That's very clearly what happened to Ryan. It's some of these interest groups who are upset that Ryan and his team are stopping all this industry from happening. And so they're funding these fucking morons to sling shit online. And like to this day, when it comes up and some of these, I know who these guys are, when some of them say some stuff, Ryan gets like bulldog angry.
Sure he does.
And I get it. Because it's like, look at all the work we're doing and some asshole can just say something
Sabotage
on Reddit.
the whole thing,
Exactly. And it's very sad.
I started off, very upset, angry, like why would someone be doing this? And then I'm a Christian. I definitely leaned on my faith a lot, to be honest with you, during that time. Did a lot of praying. And I just, I got to a point where I'm like, you know what, Lord, I'm turning this over to you, because there's nothing I can do. You can sue people, but at the end of the day, there is a reason why I had to go through that. There was a lesson had to be learned. And I kind of just look at it like that. It was a painful one. I'm here to tell you. What I will say, if who's ever listening to this, I'd like to give just a little advice. And this is my advice. If you ever caught in a situation where that happens to you, where somebody or someone or an entity or a group of people are slandering you and, acting in a libelous fashion, don't wait. Yeah. That was a problem. I tried to take the high road and throw out the olive branch and be like, hey, why are you doing this? Let's stop. Let's talk about. And it wasn't working. And it wasn't working. And I waited too long until some damage was done. So my advice to anybody listening is, if you are in that position, pull the trigger immediately. Hire an attorney. Hire an attorney that's capable and understands, especially if you're a public figure, which I am. There's certain things you have to prove, believe it or not. If you're a public figure, there are things you have to prove that other people, and you are a public figure now. Yeah. So understand, Julian, this applies to you. There's things that you have to prove that John Q. Public does not. And it's really crazy. So anyway, and I think your father is an attorney, if I'm not mistaken, right? So I'm sure he can clue you in on it. But anyway, but yeah, anybody listening, just, if you try to handle it as a professional, as an adult, like, hey, look, let's just stop this. And they don't wait. You need to get, in my opinion, you need to get a competent legal team together to handle it. Yes. And,
it's sad that you got to say that.
Is it expensive? Yeah. It's not cheap. Good attorneys are expensive, $500 an hour. But if you're forced into that corner, you're really not going to have a choice. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Well, we got that covered. It's out there. People judge that how you want to do it. But
absolutely,
I'm glad we now at least have that on
and
the
thank
record.
you. Thank you. And by the way, dude,
it's the least I could do.
And by the way, I should have said this in the beginning. This is a badass studio, dude.
Oh, thank you.
This is really cool. I know this is gonna sound kind of weird. I'm very proud of you. I've watched you now for a while grow your business, and I've watched you're taking those steps, right? And you've gone from, a small little studio that was about half this size to a beautiful place. I'm not going to say where you live, but
people know it's in Hoboken.
Yeah, okay, but you just took me for a little tour, and you live in a very beautiful area and a very nice home. But yeah, you're doing good, man.
Thank you.
Keep doing what you're doing, brother.
Look, I say it, and I especially got to say it with people like you. It doesn't happen without guys like you coming in and flying in for the day to do what you did, and now you're here again. I mean, I lean on the fact that I get I get the opportunity in this job to talk to some really cool people who've done some really cool shit, and I'm fortunate that a lot of them are very open about it when they come in here. You know, we spend 3 hours sometimes. If we do 2 episodes, we spend 6, and they open up. And this doesn't happen without that. But look, I mean, it's cool to see where we're at because you got to see it towards the end of the last era. There's unfortunately a lot of work to be done here. Obviously, Alessi and me are working 7 days a week these days, but eventually, hopefully, it won't be like that. And you know, there's good little steps along the way so that to have my own place, not in my parents' house like this. Sure. And all the people who helped out building this thing for a couple months, it's gratifying because it doesn't matter what kind of business you have or what you do.
Right.
You are the people that you are lucky enough to be surrounded with. Hopefully, it's lucky to be surrounded with good people, and I'm surrounded by some great people. So
you're passionate too, man. It's very obvious. And I when I coach people, I always say if you are passionate about what you do, it's not work anymore. You want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You want to work till 10 o'clock at night. You know, what you do, you love what you do. You're very good at it. So, Did
you ever run into a situation where you started to feel like something you loved became work?
Oh, yeah.
How did you get out of that?
So I think I talked about this on my last podcast. Between my Marine Corps career and my Army career, I was a stockbroker. And so, you know, which is something I never even thought about doing because like I did really shitty in school, you know, but I had a very good tutor. And I thought it was really sexy in the beginning. Like, wow, like a white collar guy, you know, I was a Marine corporal, whoop-de-doo, and now I'm going to be a stockbroker. So I thought it was sexy and cool. And that faded very, very quickly. Even though I was making pretty good money, like 70 grand a year-ish, 75 grand a year for back then in the early 80s. That was pretty freaking good money. And I was in my early 20s. But it became work because I got to tell you, that job was a grind. Yeah. You had to hand dial phone numbers and you would not be able to leave unless you made 400 calls. Yeah. And the branch manager sat at a desk on his machine and could tell you, hey, you got another 50 calls to make. You got another 30. It was a grind. I'll be honest with you. As far as like a mentally exhausting job, that is like right close to what I used to do with the agency. It was exhausting.
You're comparing the two. Wow.
Yeah, dude, because it's a different kind of anxiety, but it was just like because
but you didn't like it.
No, and you got to remember too, man, every month you started over.
Yeah.
Every month you started at 0 and you had a quota. And if you didn't hit it, you got 1 month of like, you're on notice. If you didn't hit your quota next month, you were fired.
So it sounds like in your example right there, the way you fixed it is you left and you went back to what you know. Yes. You went back to something you know you love. Yeah. Yep. I wonder about it though and I guess you didn't run into this. I wonder about it though with things you do love, like when it becomes a little bit of work. Because I'm in that phase a little bit right now. Mm-hmm. This is the fun part when I get to sit with people. The process to even getting to this part though has gotten so tedious. Sure. And I'm over it. I mean, Alessi, how many frames am I going to fuck before this is, I don't have to edit anymore. You know what I mean? And he gets it. I mean, he works his ass off with me now too. Oh, I'm sure. He gets it. But it gets tough sometimes.
People don't understand. It's like what I used to do for a living. Everybody thinks it's bang, bang, shoot 'em up. Dude, that was the last 2 seconds of what I used to do. What people don't see is all the work from case officers and intel people did for it could be years to lead you to someone, just like what you guys do, just like the show I was on. If I'm not mistaken, I remember them telling me it took 40 hours of actual video for a 40-minute show.
Crazy.
Think about all the editing. Oh my God. The grind. That's the grind.
Those guys are amazing. The people who do that stuff, unbelievable.
That's the grind. Doing this is great. This is fun. We're having a good time and talking, but it's the back end stuff that'll just kill you. I mean, as a broker, that became work after a while. I just didn't enjoy it anymore. Right. I do like teaching, obviously with my company, I like to teach, firearms training and tactics and stuff like that. Sometimes, depending on who my students are, it becomes work. For example, I taught a class not long ago. There was 10 people in the class, and there was one guy who self-admittedly had never shot a pistol, but like maybe 10 times. And I like training guys like that. They have no bad habits. But this guy was so scared. He was visibly shaking, shooting. I'm like, dude, relax. Like I had to concentrate on him so much just from a safety standpoint. He wasn't flagging people and keeping his finger off the trigger. It became work. It wasn't fun anymore. I couldn't keep the momentum of the class going because this guy, now I put him all the way on the end, but that's when it becomes work. Like, man, if this guy wasn't here, we could have done so much more. Right. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's vitally important, you know, for anyone that's listening. If you've got a career, doesn't matter what it is, but you're passionate about it, you got the world by the short hairs, man.
Yeah.
Because you want to wake up
You're
early.
lucky.
Yeah, dude. That's hard to find. Yeah. Dude, it's not easy. I mean, even when I was doing what I was doing with the agency, like I was passionate about the job, and it was a job, understand, but I was very passionate about it. And when you're passionate, you can perform at very high levels, right? And there they needed you to perform at very high levels. You couldn't, like, mediocrity there wasn't happening, dude. Like you needed to shine. And I think I even mentioned on the last one, like that, you know, when I was doing my interview, this guy, Ron, he goes, you know, do you think you're a good operator? I'm like, yeah, I think I'm, you know, pretty good. And he's like, we don't need good. And that kind of blew me away. Like, wow. Okay. I don't know what else to say, but,
Yeah.
but I think passion for a career, and what you do is like, I think that's what separates the rock stars from the groupies, man. People that make a little bit of money compared to people who are ultra successful. And bro, I don't judge or measure a person by the size of their wallet. Like I know a lot of wealthy people that I wouldn't trade their life with mine for all the gold in Fort Knox. You know what I mean? They may have a lot of money, but they've got highly dysfunctional families and
Right.
blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on and on.
Yep.
But
hey guys, if you have a second, please be sure to share this episode around on social media and with your friends, whether it's Reddit, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, doesn't matter. It's all a huge help. It gets new eyeballs on the show, and it allows us to grow and survive. So thank you to all of you who have already been doing that, and thank you to all of you who are going to do so now.
I think those that are out there that are passionate about their work, you know, there is a huge intrinsic value for that. I know a lot of people make a lot of money. Matter of fact, I have a friend of mine. He owns his own company. I've never asked him how much he makes, but if I were to guess, he probably makes $4 to $6 million a year in his pocket.
That'll do.
In his pocket.
That'll do.
Miserable. Guy hasn't been on a vacation in 10
That's the
years.
problem. That's the problem, man. What's the trade-off there? No good.
No good at all. And he doesn't eat right. I mean, he doesn't exercise. And he's got all. I'm like, dude, why don't you hire a trainer and a cook? I mean, he's got money. Hire a cook. You know, go to the gym. Hire a personal trainer. No, he won't take a vacation. You know why he won't take a vacation? Oh man, they'll rob me blind here. I'm like, are you telling me you can't hire one person, pay them a really nice salary, so you can get away and go enjoy your life? You're doing something wrong.
Yeah, that was something
Right?
in my last career. Working on Wall Street, we worked in the private bank, so we dealt with the big time money people, and there were some people who did it right and who lived happy. I don't want to be all negative here.
Right.
There were some clients who were very wealthy who, I don't want to say they were carefree, but a couple of them were, and they had good families, great lives, good
Right.
balance, good everything, great perspective. But I got a chance to learn not just from them, but the many people who were not like that.
Right.
And I will tell you, the phrase "mo money, mo problems" is very true. And it doesn't sound as good, but I would add in "mo money, mo invented problems." People get more money, they invent issues for themselves.
Interesting.
They invent struggles that don't need to be there. They let money get in the middle of family. They let money get in the middle of friends. They let money get in the middle of it. Drives everything they do. And one of the things that I think was awesome about me having that job was that I, at a young age, coming out of college, when you're unbelievably impressionable, I got to see that. Before I never made any. I never had a chance to make money in my career, right? So I still, to this day, because any money we've made here has gone back into this place.
Sure.
I still have never had money in my pocket, but if I'm successful, I know that's going to be a point where I do. I have a lot of thoughts about how to not change.
Right.
And I don't know, but I don't know if I would have had that if I hadn't got to see it up close like that. And so, you know, you're talking about a friend right there. That's someone you get to see up close a bit. It's a good example for all of us.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I'm not rich. I live comfortably. I've made some really good money in my past, and I've lost money in my past through bad investments. You know, and 100% my fault. Didn't do the proper due diligence. Took a risk where maybe if I had $1 in the bank, I put 80 cents of it in something, which was right, and it went kaput. And so, you know, I would caution people. I mean, again, I'm talking about this, but you know, money is very easy to lose, and very difficult to make.
Yes.
And everybody, you know, that old saying, be at the right place at the right time. Let me tell you something, that's complete bullshit. It's not right place, right time. It's right place, right time, right market, right product, right partners, right amount of money. Like all of these stars have to line up, because I have been at the right place at the right time, and it still didn't work out.
Yeah.
Still didn't work out. Yeah. So, you know, business is, you know, sure. If I had failed businesses, yep, sure have. If I had businesses that have made me money, yeah, sure have. But the difference, and we were just talking about this, the two businesses I'm thinking of, I wasn't passionate about. It made sense. Like, yep, that makes sense. But I didn't have the right partners, and it, you know, you didn't calculate the right enough money for the marketing piece, and down it went. But what I've been passionate about, like what I do now, you know, as a matter of fact, I want to thank you for something, by the way. I don't know if I even told you this, but like a gentleman that lives in Dubai saw this last podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and here you go. Here's a perfect example. Watched it. Didn't know really who I was. Didn't know anything about Ground Branch. But he had been contacting all kind of different companies, guys that are former Delta dudes and SEAL Team 6 guys and this, that, and the other thing. And he watched the podcast, and he's like, what is, never heard of Ground Branch. And this guy's very, very smart, you know? And he started Googling it like, wow, this is the guy I want to train with. Well, anyway, he ended up contacting me, and he flew from Dubai to train with me one-on-one.
Wow. Now, what kinds of things are you putting him through in training?
So he had a very specific menu. I call it.
Menu.
Yeah, well, it was, man. He actually he kind of told me like, I want to know this, and this. And I said, yeah. And he asked me how long it was going to take, and I told him. But no, he wanted a very in-depth course of pistol, carbine. He wanted to understand, you know, how to bug out. He wanted to understand, and this guy travels extensively through the Middle East, understand. So he goes to some pretty dicey places. He wanted to understand how to spot surveillance, stuff like that, you know, some tradecraft stuff. And obviously,
you had to take him into the city for that, right?
Oh, yeah. We spent 2 days in a mall.
You live out in the woods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we spent the majority of the time at a 1,000-acre facility that I train at. And then a few days in a city, actually in a big shopping mall. But
now, how would you do that? Like, because you're a civilian now doing this. Like, how you take them to a mall? What do you set up? Like a drill? Do you have people that work with you that you have as like dummy plants there? How does that work?
Correct on all aspects. Huh. So I had role players. You're getting it, bro.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
You're getting it.
There's hope for me.
No, you're right. So I had role players. And I factored this into the cost. I told him, like, do you want to do this from 1 to 10? I basically said, this is what you're going to get for a 1, and this is what you're going to get for a 10. And he's like, I want the 10.
He's from Dubai. I mean,
yeah, a very successful guy. Yeah, very, very smart, athletic, just a good dude. We got along very, very well. So I told him, you know, we're going to have role players. And I just kind of ran it similar to the surveillance course that I went through when I was with Ground Branch. And so we did some time on foot, and then we did some time in vehicles. Obviously, surveillance in vehicles is much more difficult because it's very easy to lose somebody in a vehicle. Like you're not, if you get caught behind two cars and they get a soft yellow and they go through it, you're screwed. And right, that's why you need multiple cars and stuff. Anyway, but we did the foot piece in this huge mall, massive mall, really really big mall, crowded, and I started them off at a crawl, walk, run pace where I made it very obvious. And then I kind of backed it up a little bit, like, all right, now, and backed it up a little bit till it got to a point where at the very end, he couldn't tell who was following him. And I'm like, if somebody is actually good at this, to be honest with you, if they're well trained, you're not going to know. You're not going to know. And so, but how often is that going to happen? It's probably not. It's going to be somebody that just targeted you because of how you look, or maybe the watch you're wearing or the jewelry. We're like, hey, that guy's rich, which he didn't look that way, by the way. He looked very nondescript. He did not look like a wealthy individual, which was great. Yeah, he's very smart. He and obviously he's got the money, but he just would just dress kind of like you, just very nondescript. And so he wanted to know how it would go down. And I told him, like, they're probably going to survey you for a while, get a pattern of life, watch where you go, find a weak link, and then hem you up somewhere. So
it's crazy how similarly when I've had both you and Shawn in the studio, almost like back to back. Yeah, we did. Yeah, I recorded those back to back. It's crazy how similarly you guys describe surveillance and how you both said it the same way. You'd never know.
Yeah. Well, understand Shawn, and I've never met Shawn. He was in a very, very high level protection unit, GRS. Never served with them. I knew who they were. That's the top of the food chain when it comes to doing protection details. I'm just going to tell you right now, because the people they were protecting were at high risk in high risk areas.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt Shawn has received some very, very high level surveillance training. Because
MI6 actually trained him first.
There you go,
which is crazy.
There you go.
Yeah,
doesn't surprise me one bit. So, and that was a very important piece of what they did. What I did, they just wanted you to be well rounded, but literally I've only done the surveillance piece one time in my entire career. One time.
That's it?
Yes, sir. One time.
Can you say roughly where that was?
I can't say where it was, but it was the longest op I had been on.
Was this in a civilian territory or a combat territory?
It was not in a combat area. It wasn't like Iraq or Afghanistan.
All right, I'm saying it was Greece. What's your guess, Alessi?
Italy.
All right, we're in the same part of the map.
Right.
I'm not saying
two cool places for sure, but it would be a place that you would go to on like a honeymoon. Like it was that kind of a place. So I was going to say, yeah, it was pretty good. But anyway, it was just because the way this mission came about and the way they wanted it conducted, that we actually got to do the surveillance piece.
Oh, so you're on a team with this one?
Yeah. So, and again, don't want to get into TTPs and how we did it, but that training came into play because I'm here to tell you, I wouldn't have known whether to shit or wind my watch. Like it would have been like, holy Jesus, this is a lot more complicated than you'd think it is, especially in a real world environment. You can simulate it all you want, and you can, but there's always those factors, that Murphy law, right? That just pops up, and you're like, oh, don't remember that class. Like, hold on. Let me break out the manual for a second. That's where your critical thinking skills have to come into play.
Was this the type of situation where you're trying to surveil a person or people for their pattern of life to see what they do, or to see if they're going to go somewhere advantageous for you guys to make a move on turning them or something like that?
It was one person. We were to establish a pattern of life, see who they were associating with, because of who he was and what he was doing. And then, if the opportunity presented itself, they wanted him to be, captured, and we did.
Shit got real. Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so but what was really cool about it.
Do you use chloroform when you do that? No?
Man. It's called a baseball bat. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Oh, that's one thing.
But dude, you know what's so funny?
Before I die.
But you know what's so funny? He knew the gig was up. Like, it was almost like that.
Oh, he
It
held
was
out his
very,
hands?
not quite, but it was damn near like, oh man. Like, you have to understand something, bro. These people that, the agency goes after and other soft units, they know they're hunted people, right? They're not good people. These are evil people that know that they're on somebody's list somewhere is looking for them. So when the gig is up, a lot of times the look on their face is like I knew this was going to happen sooner or later. And that was this guy. He knew, like,
Was he just like an international criminal or like a government person of like a dictatorship kind of deal?
He was, so the term facilitator, I don't know if you've ever heard of that before.
Yeah.
He was a very high level facilitator. That's all I can tell you. Very high level. And they'd been looking for this guy for a long, long time. He was very elusive.
Don't tell me this was Victor Boot.
No.
Okay. All right. That would have been
But
creepy.
the thing about this guy, though, you got to remember, and I think I said this the last time we spoke, these are very smart people. They may be terrorists, but some of these people are very educated. They've got advanced degrees. They're not stupid. They understand tradecraft. They understand they're being hunted. They understand, what they need to do to kind of screw up their pattern of life. So you can't find that weak spot.
Right.
And I'm trying to think. We were there 10 weeks. 10 weeks.
You're surveilling them for 10 weeks.
From the time we got in country, we got to a safe house, which we moved several times. Yeah, it was about 10 weeks. Yeah, it was a long time. But I tell you what, I got more experience out of that op doing the whole thing from soup to nuts. Not like, hey, we know where Julian's at, go get him. Well, okay, that's not very hard. I'm not trying to downplay it, but like,
You know where I am.
yeah, there's his house right there. There's his compound right there,
I don't have a compound for the
Yeah,
record.
right. You do have a house in Beverly Hills, though. You showed me, right?
No.
You're so full.
I wish I could. That'd be great.
It's coming, brother.
I'd love
It's
to
coming.
have that.
But no, it was really cool because you got to see how the whole thing like laid out. Instead of just seeing the last piece of it, I got to see from the very beginning all the way to the end. And I only got to do it once.
How do you know when to go in? Because you said it's 10 weeks. I would imagine you had eyes on them pretty early. You probably could have taken them earlier than you did. How do you know when?
We wanted, well, not we, our leadership wanted him to be seen and meet two people specifically. And it just took time for them to so they could PID them like, yep, that's that. Oh, that's them too. Like there was a method of the madness, so to speak. Oh yeah, we could have hemmed this guy up 2 weeks into it. Yeah. Because remember, dude, there's a thing called tactical patience, right? It's a great term, and you got to know when to kind of put the brakes on and go, okay, just stop and just watch, right? Just hold on, like everybody take a knee and chill. All right, now move. Like, and that's something that I learned over time. I didn't even know what that was when I was in the Marines and SF, like tactical patience. What the fuck? I learned it there. That's what guys that are really, really good, they can, instead of just rushing into something and just, overwhelming force, that's great at certain times, but there's a time we got to put the brakes on to go, all right, just slow down for a second.
Yeah.
Let this unfold. Let it unfold. Let it unfold. Okay, ready. And that is a learned skill. And that comes with a lot of maturity. And I didn't have that until, to be quite honest with you, the very latter end of my career. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, man. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to get that good. And I was just lucky I was around a bunch of dudes that already had it. Do you know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, like I was telling you before, it's like playing basketball with a bunch of, Michael Jordans or LeBron James.
Yes.
It's like every freaking guy, Michael Jordan, like, and I loved it because it just upped my game. And you know what the sad thing is, and when it comes to training and stuff, it's a lot of guys just can't park their freaking ego. Like, I don't want to go to the range with this guy because he can outshoot me. Well, pick his brain and find out why.
Yeah.
Like, I got a chance to train with Jerry Barnhart when I was in Ground Branch. I trained with the guy for 2 weeks. It was 1 week of pistol, 1 week of carbine. And Jerry Barnhart, back in the day, he was like a 10-time world IPSC champion, right? I think his nickname was Jerry the Burner Barnhart. Unbelievable shooter. Like, couldn't compete with the guy. But when you have the opportunity to train with a practitioner, not a hobbyist, right? And that's why I kind of have a hard on for guys online that quote that they can teach stuff. They're not practitioners, they're hobbyists. And we can get into that if you want.
Can you explain how
Absolutely.
you do the two?
But I got to train with Jerry Barnhart, and this guy took my shooting to the next level. Why? Because he was just that freaking good. That's how I got my draw under. Yep, there
This
he is
guy
right there.
on the
That's
screen?
him. Yes, sir. That's him.
Okay.
Super, super nice guy. Very humble.
He was in the military before?
I don't believe Jerry was. He was just a world-class pistol shooter.
Wow.
And the thing that I respected about him even more so is that he was so good at conveying this here. Like, I know
for
a lot
people just listening, not watching. What are you doing?
So you can be a really good shooter, a really good tennis player, a really good golfer, really good, world class. But if you can't verbalize how you're that good, you're basically useless as an instructor. And I know guys like that.
Right.
I know guys that are amazing operators. They don't have the patience or the ability to verbalize what you need to do to get that good. He was a master at it. That's where I got my draw under a second, going to his course.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was under. And, to this day, I don't shoot enough. I still can't break a second. I can do like 1.2, 1.3.
That's unbelievably fast, though.
That's respectable. But when you're under a second, that's pretty fast.
Yeah, if I tried that, someone's dying.
It's pretty fast.
Not who I'm trying to shoot either.
But you got to remember, though, but what you have to remember is you have to train with a guy like that to get that good. I can't train with a guy at my level or lower. I got to train with a dude like that. And so people that are listening, who, whatever your sport or whatever it is you want to be good at, seek these people out. Seek these people out. And that's how you're going to really get good. And for the guys listening, park your freaking ego. Okay. Don't be like, well, this guy's a much better shooter than me and I don't want to embarrass me. No, I want you to embarrass me. Like, I used to, look, I'm not an MMA guy. I know the basics. I used to grapple with this guy that weighed $160. I'm 200. I was much stronger than him, and he could literally beat me, and I'm not joking, with one hand.
Oh, yeah. It's skill.
Absolutely. And I love to train with this guy because he's like, Joe, you're trying to overpower me because you're a strong dude, but it's all technique. No, it don't. And I love training with that guy because it was very humbling, right? Those are the people that I, to this day, seek out to train with.
Yeah.
I want to train with people that make me look like an amateur.
Did you run in when you're in Ground Branch? So I know it's a small exclusive team, but I think you may have even said it a few minutes ago. So many guys had this mentality, but you had to run into some guys who were just totally driven by the ego. No, even in that.
Excuse me. Yeah.
And how were they if they're like that? How are they so effective at their job to be in that position? They're just built a little different.
So you got to kind of like separate it. You could have this giant ego, and look, yes, and I think any soft guy out there that's listening right now, if they don't agree with me, they're in denial. When you get into the special operations community, whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Ground Branch, whatever, you're dealing with not everybody, but you're dealing with some individuals that have a big ego. Raging type A man, ultra, driven, very competitive. I get it. I wasn't one of them, only because of, just the way I was brought up. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But yes, there were guys I worked with that had big egos, but they were still good operators. You know what I mean? These are the guys that, like if I'm going through a door with somebody, yeah, that's the guy I want to be with me. You know what I mean? Having an ego, to me, is exactly what we were just talking about. The guys that had the egos, in my opinion, thought they were at the top of the food chain. And maybe they were there, but to the true professional, you can always get better.
Yeah.
You can't say, I know it all. I'm as strong as I can get. I'm running as fast as I can. That's bullshit. 1% better every day. 1%, 1%, 1%. That's what I kind of consider ego, is when somebody can look at you in the eye and be like, I can't get any better. That's ego. Everybody can get better, right? Everybody.
Yeah.
And so, and it was, you just dealt with it. These aren't guys that, I would have gone beer drinking with, or like I worked with them, and you just tolerate it.
You have to.
Yeah, you tolerate it and you respect them for who they are, because they were better operators than me. They were. They were these guys I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention their names, but they were. They had more experience, more combat experience. They, came from, either tier 1 units or, just regular units, but had a lot of experience behind them. They had a lot of training, been there, done that. But you just have to be careful, man, because a big ego is also, that can get you hurt.
Yes.
When you think you're 7 foot
In
tall and
anything.
bulletproof.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Even in business, if you think you're unfat,
Yep.
you can't screw with me until one person brings you down.
It's a balance. I struggle with having any confidence, and that's not good. You do have to you got to be confident in your abilities, which
Sure.
if you want to tie that to like an ego awareness, okay. But it's you don't want to get it past that point
That's
to
right.
where you get overconfident and over egoed up, right? So I'm always
100%.
I've always erred way down here on the scale. That's not good. You got to be more here. But the guys who are up here, I think that's where you miss things. That's where you start to become a target, and you don't even realize you got the dot right on your forehead.
That's right. I've always been to the person that, believes in, I'm a student of war. Sun Tzu, one of his famous quotes is, be a student of war.
In Jersey, we say Sun Tzu.
Sun Tzu.
Yeah, we got to say it that way.
You have to. Jesus. I'm sorry. But no, I've always had that mentality. That's why I read a lot. I don't read fiction. I read books that add to my capability, whether it's in business or what I do for a living. And I think, that's the kind of people I want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
I want to work with people that are humble enough to know, hey, there's always somebody else that'll knock you off the ladder.
Yes, that's right.
You're never at the top. You may think you are. It may appear that you are until somebody knocks your ass off. And this is what I told someone the other day. It's so funny. I was coaching somebody and I said, be very careful, because I could tell by the way they were talking to me that they had the ego, they had the money in a business. And I said, take this however you want, but be very careful whose toes you step on climbing up the ladder, because they're the same people's asses they're going to kiss on the way down.
Oh, that's a great line. Write that one down. We got to use that.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. 100% true.
Yep.
On the way down, you'd be like, uh-oh, here comes Julian again. Hey, dude, how you been? Hey, fuck off.
Right.
Right?
That's
Right?
right, man. And it's about how you treat people too.
Yes.
I mean,
yes, sir.
That's the worst. That when I go in somewhere and someone treats the waiter different or something like that, it's hard to come back from that for me. Like, as far as like, if I'm watching you do that,
That's right.
I have a judgment on you.
That's
I now
right.
have an attitude about you
That's
that
right.
is not good.
Yeah. And I try, dude, I try every day, to live my life like that and just respect everyone, because first off, that's a good way to live. You know what I mean? That's just a good way to live, in a very healthy way to live. Trust me, I carried a lot of baggage around with me for a long. I still do.
Nah.
Yeah. My closet's overflowing. I just keep it locked. But we all have baggage. Give me a break, dude. The older you get, I'm a little older, and you're going to have more and more baggage. We all do. It's just, what do you do with it? And they say, you got skeletons in your closet. Yeah, I do. But my skeletons stay in my closet. They don't get out and run around and get in your closet, and that's the difference, where you try not to let the things of your past interfere with the things of your future, because that is a sure recipe for disaster.
Well, you also got to worry about some people that you saw in the past not coming and showing up in America and being like, I remember that motherfucker.
Not
he took
me.
out my terrorist friend.
Nope, not me. That's somebody else.
Yeah, you got the wrong guy. I'm surprised, though, that you only had one where you actually had to do the surveillance, though. But you did have, and again, we can speak broadly here because I know you can't go into exact missions on some stuff, but you did do, as I understood it, at least some volume of situations where you're kind of like undercover, no?
Yes.
Yeah. So and you're separating out the two. So if you're doing something where you're in plain sight, but you're acting as something else, you're treating that very different than actually tailing someone when you're distracted.
Correct. One is an actual operation, a skill. Like pulling surveillance on somebody is a hard skill. It's something that's, you don't practice it, you're going to lose it. But the term that you're kind of groping for is the gray man, right? You want to be the gray man. And so, how do you hide in plain sight? Some people can pull this off and some people can't, just because of the way they look. If you're a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, 6'7" guy in Afghanistan,
tough.
Okay, you better start dyeing your hair, and it's going to be tough. So it's environmental. It's an environmental situation that you have to be able to blend into, right? Like I said the other day, you don't want to be the token white guy. Like, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb. So, but it's certainly a hard skill being the gray man, and understanding the RAS, the reticular activating system in your brain. And a lot of people don't even know what that is. Google it. It's basically a filter that,
you talked about this.
Yeah, it's a filter that your brain is taking in like 11 million bits per second of information, but your conscious mind is only able to process like that much.
Yeah.
So understanding how all that stuff works, and what you should wear and what you shouldn't wear, and how fast you should be walking or how fast you shouldn't be walking, or what kind of vehicle you should be in. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It takes one little hiccup where somebody goes, and now you're like, uh-oh. They may or may not think they're being followed, and now you got to change up the whole game plan. Right. So, but yeah, it was awesome, man. I really enjoy that stuff because you can't make mistakes, and it's all the little nuances, man. Like, it's very cool. Like,
are you able to, broadly, without giving up people and locations, talk about a time where you guys did kind of have to set a trap for somebody? Again, not surveillance, more undercover. And I guess when I'm asking about this, it's a little difficult because you got to be vague on stuff.
Yeah.
But when we think about it, we're just thinking about the movies, like smash and grab, like, okay, there he is. Once we got it figured out, we're just going to take him or whatever. But I would imagine it's because you're an unofficial team. There's a lot you got to take into account with what direction this is going to go.
So one of the things that you have to take into account when you're doing covert action type stuff is who's seeing what you're doing. So you always have to take into account cameras, right? There's cameras everywhere.
Well, now especially, yeah.
Yeah, and even like where we were doing that, we knew that was one of the things that we did when we first got there, is we sent guys out on singleton operations by themselves in certain areas, like find out where every freaking camera is, buildings, streets, everything, because you don't have a video of you hemming somebody up in a vehicle interdiction, right? We're going to snatch somebody out of a vehicle, and now some camera just got the whole thing on film. Right. Like, you really, really want to avoid that kind of stuff. That's important. But you're looking you're looking for a place that is out of prying eyesight, somewhere where preferably they're going to be alone, where they feel safe, right? Where like, hey, you know, like for example, going into their apartment, you know, that they're in a secure building, or they think they're in a secure building, and now they're home. You know, their guard's kind of down. They're not, you know, at full alert, because you have to understand, like what I just told you, these are people, for the most part, know they're on a list somewhere. They're doing shit they shouldn't be doing. They're, you know, attached to or working for a terrorist organization. Doesn't matter which one.
Mm-hmm.
They know what they're doing is wrong. And they know somebody's probably watching them, and sooner or later is going to send people to stop them. And so, you know, I don't know if that answered your question, but
yeah, I mean, I was looking for like some sort of specific story where that may have happened, though, without going into the place. Like, was there, so to use what you just described, was there a situation where you and maybe a team of your guys in an undercover operation lured someone to, say, a private place and then captured them?
Okay, so one time we rerouted a road. So basically put signs that the road was under construction. I mean, it's not sexy, but they didn't have a freaking choice, and basically funneled them into an ambush.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, a vehicle interdiction, right? Not that we fired their car up again.
Like Sonny and the Godfather type deal here?
Oh, not that bad. No.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a flat ass ambush to kill the guy. Again, the whole idea here is capture these people so they can be interrogated to get more information. What I'm talking about right now, we interdicted their vehicle, but the way we did it is we just rerouted the road and sent them to a place that they went through a choke point where they couldn't get out of. You know, they drove in and that was it. They couldn't get out if they had to. And we were on them so fast, and they did have a weapon in the car. I couldn't even get to it in time. And one of the dudes I was with, it was actually funny. The guy's driver's side window was down. And one of the dudes I used to work with is big. He was a huge dude, man. He was a big guy. He was like 6'6", 250. Like he get his hands on, he's going to hurt you. And he literally drugged this guy through the window. It was really funny. Like,
nice.
Yeah, didn't even open up the door. You know? And, but yeah, I mean, dude, there's all kind of neat little ways that you can set somebody up for failure. And this is where, and I keep saying this, and I've said it before, like the guys that I worked with were freaking smart dudes. Okay. They were exceptionally gifted planners. I wasn't when I got there. I'm be totally honest. Didn't have a need to be until I got there. And just like we're sitting here, dude, no different. Throw all the freaking intel on the table and you're like, all right, how are we going to do this? One person starts looking like, hey, what about this? Oh shit, that's not going to work. Hold on. Hey, check this out. Like there's a building right across the street. Like, ooh. And then the thing starts gelling, right? And then one guy chimes in and another guy chimes in. And it's before you know it, you got this bomber plan, man.
How often are these meetings happening with just all ground branch guys versus also having some other dudes maybe from the agency or something else in the room?
When we planned something, it was just us.
Just you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, maybe once. There was one chief of base that we worked with, and he was a younger guy that wanted to be, you know, clued in on everything. Most of our quote unquote bosses, the chiefs of base, were just like, hey man, there's my office if you need me.
You're talking CIA station chiefs?
Yeah, well, not the station chief. That's the head guy. I'm talking about like a chief of base, like of a base, right? So you have like the in-country head guy, and then you've got all these outposts, and they all report to him. I'm talking about if I was at a base on the board.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And so they just
capos of the family.
There you go. There you go. Yep, the capo.
You're in Jersey.
There
we
you
gotta
go.
translate into our language.
But that was, you know, the chief of base. Normally they were older, mature guys, been there, done that, and they kind of just left you alone to do what you did. And they would be like, hey, like literally, like, hey, there's my office right there, and if you need me, come get me. Yes, sir. Roger that.
Whoa.
And sometimes we would have to get them and say, hey, you know, this is a situation right now. How do you want us to handle this? Because at the end of the day, they are in charge of that base, right? We aren't. We're just a tool, no more, no less. And you got to remember, everything that we were doing was all part of a bigger picture, if you know what I mean. So, and you may not even know, quite frankly, the big picture, hence the term special compartmentalized or sensitive compartmentalized information, you know, like everything's compartmented, you know, so you may not know the whole picture. So if you do get rolled up somewhere, you don't know everything. All I just know is that's it.
Right.
So, but for the most part, yeah, they just leave you alone. You can just do your thing, dude. It's big boy rules, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I also always wonder how many layers there are to people out in the field. It's a little different with ground branch because you guys are literally deniable as we've gone through. But did you see that story Jack Murphy put out? God, this is like a little over, I think it's almost exactly a year ago now, about the sleeper cells in Russia.
I did not.
Okay, so this one's interesting, and maybe you could break this down a little bit. But essentially, Jack Murphy went in and did a podcast with my buddy Danny Jones on the Danny Jones podcast, going through everything he reported. But he's a former Army guy, reports on everything related to special forces, intel around the world. He's got a podcast called The Team House that's really good. But he worked on this story for months after the Ukraine war broke out about these sleeper cells that we, the United States, along with NATO allies, allegedly had ready to go in Russia when the war happened. So if you remember, like when some of these bridges were blowing up and factories in Russia were mysteriously exploding and whatever, what he was saying is that these were these sleeper cell agents who were just creating chaos and bombing these places once the war broke out. And what he posited was that back in maybe the mid-2000s, late 2000s, some of these guys were set up and left there to live undercover lives. And then almost like a Morse code type, it wasn't exactly Morse code, but almost like a Manchurian candidate wake up kind of thing, as in like the name sleeper cell. The minute that war broke out, they were put into action where they knew, like, okay, maybe one guy, he buries a bomb at this latitude and longitude in the boreal forest or something, and he's going to go take it to this facility and blow it up or something like that, and caused all this. Guys like that, I would imagine a lot of them are assets on the ground that were turned, so a lot of them are native Russians that now work for them. But are they purely sleeper undercover during that time, or are they, would you say someone like that might actually be routinely handled and report and do reconnaissance as well in the build-up in the years towards something like that?
Well, for starters, I've never been involved in like a quote unquote sleeper cell operation. Are they out there? Yeah, of course. And the word you're looking for is called a bona fides.
Yes.
You've heard that term before. They get a certain word or a sentence that basically tells them, hey, that's telling you to go do this operation right now. So that's called a bona fides. But anyway, yeah, of course there are sleeper cells, and of course there are people that are on the payroll of the agency that, some are knocks. Those are like the non-official cover. Those are the guys that are embedded in a business. Like that's really heavy duty stuff. They're embedded as a business as an IT guy or whatever, at least they think they are, but in fact they're collecting intel. Understand they're, again, I've never done this type of operation. I just know from talking to people, any asset that you have, well, not you, that the agency has is managed somewhere. Somebody is managing them in one way or another. And it's by a case officer, more than likely. And so these individuals aren't just like rogue, so to speak. Like they're not just out there flapping in the wind and can do whatever they want, whenever they want. They are told when to do because everything has to be done. It's a process, right? You got to do A before you do B, before you do C. So they're managed. These people are managed. They're paid. They're assets of the agency. But as far as just like going out there and doing whatever they want, I'm saying no. Think about it. What happens if they do something or they go hit a target or, taking a certain individual out of the equation when in fact, like we needed that guy to get to that. Like you can't just have people out there just randomly running around like a loose cannon. This is because besides what the TV shows and movies, the agency is extremely methodical, like extremely methodical. Like they plan way out, almost like the Chinese businessmen. They don't plan 2-3 years out. They plan 20 years out, 30 years out. Mm-hmm. That's the way the agency is. Like, if we do this now, what kind of ripple effect is that going to have 5 years from now? Maybe we should just leave this guy in control for a while, right? And I'm just spitballing right now, but I know how these people think. They're very, very smart. Okay, they think way long term. What are the effects of if we do A? What is the effects of B, C, D 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? So, yeah, sleeper cells, duh. Yeah, that's a no-brainer, dude. There's people out there doing it, of course. I mean, do you think we have sleeper cells in this country? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, people that are listening, if you don't think there's sleeper cells in this country from terrorist organizations, you need to be smacked. It's like time to wake up. Yes, they're here. How many? Where? Don't know, but they're here.
Even beyond sleeper cells, just like embedded intel. And Andy Bustamante said there's an estimate that you have to highlight it's an estimate because you can't really know that at any given time in the United States of America, there are at least 100,000 undercover agents of some sort. That's scary.
I wouldn't have guessed that high, but he would know.
We're all 1 degree of separation from one.
Yeah.
When you really extrapolate that, 340 million people, 330 million people, 100,000 of them, which is a small percentage, but it's big enough that at spread out scale, chances are you've met one in your life.
Yeah. And of course, a gentleman with his background and access and placement to what he did, I would probably guess that his estimation is probably accurate. He's not just pulling it out of thin air.
Yeah.
But it's scary. Yeah, man, it's very scary. I mean, think about during the Cold War, how many, sleeper cells we had, and there was actually teams, special forces teams set up to, and again, this is all open source. I mean, that would jump man-packed nukes, literally jump in a man-packed nuke into a country, so
crazy.
Yeah, for sure, man. And it's, again, open source, I read about it. There have been books written about it. But yeah, very scary, man. We live in a very rogue and feral world, and I just don't understand how some people can just put a blind eye up to it. Like, God bless, man.
People see the world they want to see. And I always have to check myself on that too. We all want world peace. We all want things to be happy and dandy, but that's not at scale how things work. There are bad people in the world. Sometimes they're here too.
That's right.
Right?
Oh,
it exists everywhere. And there's a reason that guys like you have to exist. You might not like that has to happen, but it's just how it is.
Right.
There's always. I'm very fascinated by the idea that there always has to be an enemy, and so sometimes it gets maybe created in a way or like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Nonetheless, you're always going to have someone who hates you, regardless of where you are in the world right now. You're always going to have some sort of other team that doesn't like the team you're on, and human beings make some wildly stupid decisions and lead themselves to some sometimes evil places in the face of conflict like that. And look, we're seeing it all over. I do want to talk with you about the fact that we've had 2 major wars play out on the world stage now that are still going on over the past 2 years. But before I got there, the one clarification I wanted to ask as well on top of sleeper cell stuff is, as I mentioned, that mission in particular was one that was run conjointly with other NATO countries as well. So it wasn't just like a U.S. operation. For you guys, though, being an off-books team, meaning no one knows about you, I would assume, I just don't want to assume and be wrong, that you didn't do any types of missions with representatives from other countries on teams similar to yours?
No.
Yeah. So it's completely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would, the one op that we did, I told you it was 10 weeks. Our cover for status and cover for action while we were there was obviously different than what we were there to actually do.
Mm-hmm.
And you may interface with other, and we did, with other assets of other countries, but they had no idea who we were and what we were doing.
So are you in that situation? Are you saying like, oh, we're representing
State
Special
Department.
Forces or State Department? Okay. All right. Fair
State
enough.
Department. We're with the State Department. Okay.
How often was that type of thing your cover? Like a public
Not
office?
often.
Like I was going to say.
Not
That's
often.
not really.
No. Understand, dude, most of the work that I did was in like Afghanistan, Iraq, like working with, foreign nationals.
Yeah. Can we pull up that picture I texted you, Alessi, of Joe? Put it on the screen.
Of just working with foreign nationals, Iraqi units, Afghan units that the agency put together.
So you can pass.
Yeah,
can
dude,
totally
that was
pass.
Oh my God. That was dude, that was actually in the Arabian desert when I was on my show. Dude,
Is that Moses burning bush right there?
Dude, it was 127 degrees.
That's
I
nice.
bullshit you not. It was so freaking hot. And we had just come from the jungle and went to the desert. Like everybody got sick. Anyway,
Where in the jungle?
Sri Lanka.
Oh, you went from Sri Lanka right over to here?
And then from there to a glacier in Norway where it was 20 below zero. Oh yeah, dude. It wiped out the crew.
So this is during, we're going to talk about dual survival soon. This is during dual survival?
Yeah, that was in Oman in the Arabian desert. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And I just found this little tree and like, dude, there was nothing. And there was like this tiny little like bush. I'm like, what the hell? Like it was just weird, just growing out of the sand. It was bizarre.
It's a great picture though.
Yeah.
But I could
you see what
totally
I'm saying
see you,
though?
yes.
Dude, you see what I mean? And my beard was short there. I wore a little bit longer beard in Afghanistan. So, again, when I was in Iraq and we worked up in the northern part of the country, in Kurdistan, in this little town called Erbil, everybody there thought I was Kurdish.
Right.
I never got a second look ever on the street.
Yeah. I mean, you have
Right.
a good profile for
Right.
this kind of thing.
That's what I'm saying. Some guys can't pull that off.
Right.
Right? Just because you just don't have that look. Maybe it'd work in another environment. But there, you have to have a certain look and that makes it even more dangerous. Like I said, now you're the gray man. Now you're literally the wolf in sheep's clothing. And people have no clue what you're doing until it's too late.
Your work that you did there, obviously you're one unit, but your units maybe combined with some of the other special operations type stuff we do. Did you ever have a real conscious understanding of how close to complete chaos and conflict we often were, but perhaps because some of the actions guys like you took, things were avoided?
Maybe in Afghanistan, yeah. Here, no, obviously. But like in Afghanistan, it started becoming apparent that things weren't going to work out well.
When?
Towards the very latter part of my deployments and just hearing other guys talk and sharing their experiences and just...
What years are we talking here? Sorry, I should ask that.
I'm going to say like 2010.
Wow. Long before it even...
Yeah, it was... There were just little telltale signs. I just... and again, dude, I wasn't involved in the politics there, so let's just get that out of the way. I was not a politician. That's case officer stuff and, chief of base, or excuse me, chief of station stuff. They're interfacing with high level people.
Understood.
That was not me. I was a very, very small piece. I was the last 2 seconds of it. But you could just see, like it. I'll just give you one
Please.
example. I'll give you one. So early on, you had, you ever seen a commercial, not a commercial, but a thing on TV? It showed early on in the war, these Afghan training camps, and it showed guys like going across ladders and coming
Yes.
out. Okay. they had these training. It was like an incubator, dude. Like as fast as you could get rid of people, they were backfilling them and backfilling them and backfilling them. Like it was like trying to kill cockroaches. You know, like there's another one. It's like you got to a point where like there's just not enough of us. Now, what I mean by that is like soft. Look, that was a soft war. Okay, that was a pure, in my opinion, a special operations war. Right? It was counterterrorism missions that is assigned to special operations in the military and the government. Right? So it was very apparent that you just couldn't get rid of these people fast enough. I mean, like. I can just tell you, like when I was in Iraq, we were commingled with other military soft units. Delta was there, the SCS was there. These guys were out every fucking night, like every day, 7 days a week almost, and they were hitting multiple targets. Like there just wasn't enough people taking it down fast enough. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like if you look at a company, like if you look at a big corporation, and you know, you cut the head off, you get rid of the CEO. Well, they've got 8 people waiting in line to backfill them. Then you knock off a couple VPs. Well, they just got a bunch. You couldn't get rid of them. I hate to say it, but you just couldn't get rid of them fast enough. That was my opinion. Just because of the fucking op tempo was just crazy.
Yeah.
It was, that's why deployments with the unit I was in like, the guys from Delta and the guys from SEAL Team 6, you know, you're looking at 90 days, 120 days. That's it. You're done. I mean, you are, you know, rode hard and put up wet for 90 days. I mean, there's guys in those units where I came from have done 2,000 missions. Yes, sir.
How's that even possible?
No, it is. I'm not one of them. I'm just telling you, I know of got 1,500, 1,700. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yes. Unbelievable. Yeah. I'm not one of them. I don't have that many. But yeah, there are guys that were in that number. I mean, think about and surviving.
That's nuts, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the odds
dude,
there.
That's what I'm saying. The odds aren't good. It's a testament to those units. It's a testament to the training and the selection process and how good these guys are. Sure, you're going to take casualties. Sure, you're going to have guys get hurt. Sure. But for the amount of missions that they were doing, the casualties were, you know, they were big, but compared to what they were doing was incredibly small.
But over in Afghanistan, like the line, I know I've said a bunch on this podcast, and I think it was a line Obama actually said that was pretty spot on, was that it felt like with Afghanistan, we took our eye off the ball.
Correct.
And we went and spread out. We went to Iraq and stuff. Mm-hmm. But you're right. At the beginning, when we first went in there, it was post 9/11. It was a historical moment for modern warfare because it was a CIA paramilitary, you know, in combination with the military operation. And what it seems like is what you're saying is it never got to get too far beyond that because we put all the resources in Iraq, which had a lot more.
Understand. Regardless of what anybody thinks or reads, the first boots on the ground in Afghanistan, ground branch.
Oh yeah.
Hands down.
Yep.
Matter of fact, one of the guys that got killed. Yeah. Span was one of the guys. I never knew the guy. First name was Johnny, I think. He got killed in a prison. Kind of just got overran, but he was.
Wait, he got killed in a prison?
Well, he was there with another guy. I don't know the whole story, but they were in a location with a bunch of, I think they were prisoners, and somebody got a hold of a gun, and it was just a bad judgment call, and basically he got killed. I don't know if the other guy did, but he was one of the first guys killed in the war, and he was from Ground Branch.
Whoa.
You can Google it. It's not classified. Yeah, I think it's Span, Spann, Johnny Span, and don't quote me on it, but
yeah, let's pull that up.
Yeah, yep, that's him right there.
All right, do we have a news story we can read?
Yep.
Okay, wait, go back to the Wikipedia.
I don't know if
we'll go with the basics. Let's go down. Death of King Jini. Yeah. Span was killed. Can we just zoom in, Alessi? Because it's like size 8. Sorry. Span was killed during an uprising at Kaijangi sorry if I said that wrong, compound near Mazar-e-Sharif in northern Afghanistan. Earlier that day, he and David Tyson, a CIA case officer and Uzbek language specialist based in Tashkent, questioned John Walker Lind, an American citizen, and other prisoners. Around 400 al-Qaeda prisoners has surrendered on November 24th and been kept overnight in the cellar of the Pink House in the southern half of the fort. Spann focused intently on Lind, and another prisoner identified him as an Irishman. Spann asked Lind, "Do you know the people here you're working with are terrorists and killed other Muslims? There were several hundred Muslims killed in the bombing in New York City. Is that what the Quran teaches? I don't think so. Are you going to talk to us?" Lind remained silent. Two Afghan doctors, interviewed by author Toby Herndon, witnessed Spann's final moments. They saw the CIA officer, who was about 5 yards away from them, swing around and raise his AKMS rifle to his shoulder as the prisoners revolted amid sounds of gunfire and grenade explosions. Prisoners went rushing out straight at Spann. The doctor saw Spann shoot 2 or 3 of them with his Kalashnikov before the Qatari prisoner and others who had been sitting close to the Pink House stood up and jumped on Spann from behind, pushing him to the ground. Spann pulled out his Glock 19 pistol and fired 1 or 2 shots before he was overwhelmed, disappearing beneath a pile of prisoners, desperately trying to seize his weapons. Tyson ran towards Spann after hearing his comrade shout, "Dave, Dave, Dave." Tyson then used his Browning high-powder pistol to shoot dead 4 al-Qaeda prisoners on top of Spann. Kicking Spann and seeing the blood on the ground, Tyson concludes Spann was dead. Tyson grabbed Spann's AKMS rifle and used it and other weapons to fight his way into the northern half of the fort, killing at least a dozen, possibly up to 40 al-Qaeda prisoners. Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's
Didn't
horrible.
go well. But, I don't know if you're aware of this, but, in the main foyer of the CIA headquarters that you always see on movies with the big emblem on the ground, you also have the memorial with the
stars on the wall.
I think there's, oh boy, I'm going to get this wrong, but 139-ish.
Something
Half
in
of
the
them are SAD, SOG guys.
Wow.
What I was told, half.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
That's heavy.
yeah. So, but yeah, that gentleman, I never met him, never had the honor or the privilege to meet him, but just in a bad situation. Too many prisoners, not enough protection. And they overwhelmed him and he died.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah.
But you were saying you saw the signs there around 2010. I mean, obviously, like we said, we took resources out there. It remained kind of a soft war, and you have limited people on the ground. But I think what shocked people the most besides the craziness of the imagery we saw, like the famous pictures and videos we were seeing in Afghanistan in August 2021, but what shocked people the most was how much the Taliban still obviously had enough support across the country to do this. Mm-hmm. Did that ever really change? Like when they were taken down at the beginning, was it like, oh, now 90% of the country is against them, and eventually it got back to like only 50% was against them? Or did there remain a serious thought among a lot of people on the ground, like, hey, they are a better option?
Oh, wow, dude. That's a really very tough question to answer, because you got to remember my view of that war was like this. Meaning, I wasn't a big picture guy. Yeah, I mean, we had intel that was told to us, but we were more focused on individuals. Do you know what I'm saying? As far as what we did. We weren't strategic planners. That was way above my pay grade. We were just a tool, the surgeon that took out little cancer cells. But in my personal opinion, I just think that we underestimated big time the support that they had, the assets that they had. I mean, dude, when you started digging into how their money, remember, dude, money makes the world go round,
100%.
Right? Okay, when we started to hear like how much money they were getting from all these different profit centers and drugs and child trafficking and all this other shit that they were into, it was staggering how much money they actually had their hands in. And when you have money, what do they say? You throw money at it, right? You can make things happen. Because what do you think we did when we went over there? The first guys, like that guy that you just showed, they went over there with bags of money, millions and millions of dollars, and just bought these tribal leaders like, hey, we need your help. And by the way, here's $500,000, which is
Over there, it's like a billion.
50. Yeah, dude, it's like 50 million, $100 million. It's stupid money, right? So, but just remember too, man, money to those people are very important, like anyone else, but it's only going to buy so much loyalty.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like only so much.
You don't buy their heart. You just buy their mind.
That's what I'm saying. For it's a time and space, right? So, but you know, I am definitely not the guy to ask as far as like, you know, the whole strategic thing. It just, I wasn't privy to that. You know, I mean, I just wasn't. Because I wasn't operating at that level. Those were decisions that were being made way way above our, you know, you're talking about, you know, the chief of station and above, right? Talking to people back in Virginia and like, and then it just filters down. I was just a small piece of, you know, taking care of the problem children. Like,
did you ever see the poppy fields there?
I had, yeah. Yeah.
Pretty crazy, no?
Yes. And you know, my dumb ass didn't even know what the hell they were. I'm like, what pretty flowers. No, so dude. Funny. I was like, those are fucking really cool looking flowers. My buddy's like, dumbass.
I can't feel my mouth no more.
Yeah, no. I honestly didn't really know when I first saw them because when they bloom, they're very colorful. But when not, they're kind of like just like a.
How big? Like was the one you saw? No, but how big was like
the
field?
The one that I saw was probably 300 yards long and 100 yards wide, maybe something like that.
That's a lot of heroin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see these pictures of these American soldiers like forced to guard them and whatever. Yeah. But I do wonder about, I mean, we saw the shit in Vietnam when we were there. There's a black market for that even in the military. Yeah. Did you ever see any of that?
See,
some guys on the take?
No. Never, dude. Yeah. And dude, even when, I'll be honest with you, like, I know when you would hit a compound, you know, there, especially in Iraq, we hit a couple places where you'd find those gold-plated AK-47s that the Republican Guard carried. I mean, I don't know how much those things are worth, but I know to a collector, like, dude, that's one thing I'll tell you, I never saw one guy that I worked with ever do anything that was even slightly like.
Not necessarily people you work with, but I'm saying, did you see anything with the military with that?
Dude, we, again, didn't really associate with them. Never went out on ops with them. The only military guys that we went on ops with, and it was every now and then, was either Delta or Dep Group. That's it. And it was every now and then. And it was like, hey, you know, we're hitting this place and it's kind of too much for us to take down. Can you do this? And we'll do this. And we're like, okay, great. But that's about it. Yeah, we didn't, you know, we're kind of like bastard children, so to speak. Like, you know, like the unsociable guys that live over there. But yeah, dude, and we just didn't. And rightly so. We had no business.
All right, well, let's talk about those modern wars that are happening right now. We've been hinting at it all day.
Yeah.
So, without me going into details, you had been looking, or I should say, you had people reach out for, I'll say, one of these war zones to potentially go over and do some, I guess we'll call it consultant work, which you have turned down and you're not going to be doing. But I don't care which direction you go here. If you go Ukraine, Israel, we'll hit both of them. But it seems to me like now the concept of a proxy war is fought openly in the media. And in the middle of it, you have two sides on both of them and a lot of people dying. And it's hard not for your head to go to military-industrial complex, creating conflict to create enemies on purpose, you know, all kinds of backroom people trying to run the world type deal.
Sure.
So when you see things like this, obviously you know very well war is hell, but Do you think there's any ability in either those types of situations to get a real peace, or is the whole point that there's never going to be it?
Boy, oh boy.
It's a heavy question, but let's just start with it.
You know, I've been to Israel. Absolutely beautiful country. Amazing people. I was there for 6 months on a protection detail for the State Department. And our job was basically to take people from the consulate that was in Jerusalem to the embassy, which was in Tel Aviv at that time. I think it might have moved, but anyway, and we went all over the country, West Bank, Gaza Strip, Abu Dis, Ramallah. But, you know, I don't know how a country that has been infected, but like they've been at war, so to speak, forever. Not like a war, but constant terrorist attacks. You know, they're constantly having to monitor their borders. They're constantly having to monitor their own streets. Like when I was there were 7 bombings in one day.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and again, this is a long time ago, but, you know, I don't know how you take out the hatred that Hamas has, you know. How do you just get rid of it? Like, I don't think it's possible.
I don't think it is.
And it's passed down from generation to generation. And dude, you got to remember, you know, you're talking about land that was given to, like, by God. Like, this is very religious stuff. You may not think so, or some people, but there's a lot of religion involved in here too.
Oh yeah.
You know, the land, and anyway, and it is a horrifically complex, and Lord knows I don't know 1/10 of it, but it's a horrifically complex situation. You know, I just read online, and this just goes to what you just said. How do you know what to believe?
You don't.
It's like you don't. And you know what? You just don't. It's somebody's narrative, or it's the truth. You don't know. But I just read online, and it was, you know, quote unquote, a legitimate, you know, news outlet, if you want to call it legitimate, that they said that the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence service, knew for a year prior to this attack.
Yeah.
Did they know? I don't know. If they knew, why didn't they do something about it? Well, according to this,
why didn't they do something?
well,
about
according to this article, the word, and I may be wrong, was they said that the plan was too audacious. There's no way they could have pulled it off. But if it is true, they pulled it off with perfection. Because it even talked about in this article that they were going to use paragliders, and they were going to, you know, all this, everything, exactly the way they did it. They executed it in exactly the way they said in this article. Is it true? I don't know. I don't know. And that's, you know, you don't know. And the bottom line is, you know, you're dealing with deep-seated hatred.
Yes.
Okay? Like beyond your comprehension and yours and mine.
I think it's clear, and you know, let's call Hamas what they are. It's a terrorist organization, plain and simple. And there seems to be, that's getting lost in some of these conversations these days. I understand this is a very difficult topic and everything, but there's some common sense things we have to talk about this. I mean, I had Remy Adeleke in here. I was telling you about this off camera. He hunted them when he was in the Navy SEALs. He was telling me before, we've seen some of these stories come out where Israel has to bomb some of the ambulances and stuff.
Right.
I remember there was one, I don't know, a few weeks ago where that happened. And I was on the phone with him a week into this war, and he's like, you know, just to let you know, that shit's real. Like, they do hide in hospitals. They do transport around in ambulances. They hide in schools. He's like, you're going to hear Israel get shit for bombing ambulances and stuff, and I'm telling you, they're bombing terrorists when they do that. So sometimes there are things. But then we see, you know, there are two sides to this struggle. And I will tell you, some of the actions of Israel have been maddeningly disappointing. Taken out, I mean, they took out a refugee camp and admitted this because they were targeting one terrorist or something on the whole thing. I mean, the number of civilians, and it's hard to know what the exact numbers are. Again, I'm like you, I don't I don't really know what to believe, and I understand there has to be a response to such a horrible
Right.
terrorist attack, but the number of civilians they've seemingly indiscriminately taken out is wrong. And what's disappointing to me is that Hamas is going to play dirty. They're terrorists. I mean,
Correct.
we've all seen videos at this point of them, people crying and they're holding a plastic baby. They're not even like sleek about it sometimes. There was another guy, I don't know if we could pull this up, Alessi, but there's one dude who's like known as like the Hamas actor. He plays every role. You know who I'm talking about? He takes a video where one day he's like crying with like supposedly his son. The next day he's being operated on dead. The next day he's taking a drone video in the middle of the street. The next day he's like in the middle of he plays, I forget what he's even called. But like we see all that. I just don't like that, from a government on the other side that's not a terrorist group, you're seeing some propaganda too. And it makes it even more sickening because all it does is it ups the ante of anger on both sides. It gives more people political points to try to score, and that leads to what? More death.
Right.
It's so sad to me.
Yeah. To be honest with you, when that happened, I wasn't surprised.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's kind of like a long time coming. I know it sounds terrible.
No, I know what you mean.
But like, just like here, in our country, if another terrorist attack happens, I'll be like, is anybody surprised? Like, if you are, where you been living? Like, where you got your head buried in the sand somewhere. I have Israeli friends.
Yes, do I?
Yeah. And, one thing I will tell you about Israel, and I'm just going to say this because I've seen it with my own eyes. They have a huge national pride because if everybody that is in their country, man or woman, has to serve. I may be wrong. I think a woman has to serve 2 years and a man 3.
Right.
I may be wrong.
We can check that.
But everybody has to serve in some capacity. I love that. I think that's amazing. And they have massive national pride there. Massive.
Yeah.
I saw it with my own eyes, and rightly so, and they should. They're very proud people, and they've been through years and years and years of conflict. And I will tell you, when it comes to counterterrorism, they invented the game.
Yes.
They invented the game.
They're the best in the world.
Let's just say it right now.
Yeah.
When it comes to what modern day counter-terrorist units do and how they operate, all goes back to how they started. I mean, yeah, of course you had the British SAS that, took it to the next level, but actual like counter-terrorism operations, Israel was doing it way before anyone else was doing it, and doing it at high levels.
Yeah. Out of survival.
Exactly.
Yep.
Out of survival. Not because like, well, let's just form this unit. No, we need people to take care of this stuff right now. And they're very, very good at it. Their intelligence service, very, very good.
You know what these places have such an advantage of us on, in my opinion? They don't think about today and tomorrow.
Sure.
They're always thinking about 100 years from now. This is what we don't get in this country. In this country, it's now.
That's right. Right? Instant gratification.
Yes.
Yeah. No,
but
you're right.
We have I've used this quote a bunch on the podcast, and I'll keep saying it. We really have never been invaded before, and it shows. I mean, we were invaded in the War of 1812.
Right,
that
right,
doesn't
right.
count at this point.
Right.
But we don't know how lucky we are with our geography.
That's right.
And with our enjoying the benefits of being the world power.
Sure.
These other places, I mean, Israel's the size of New Jersey.
Right. Yeah.
It's,
Small
I think,
state.
a little smaller, right?
Yeah.
Like, they get it.
And they're surrounded.
They're surrounded.
Yeah. They're
That's
surrounded. Right. Yeah. And they have no choice. And I'm not flag waving for Israel. I'm certainly not flag waving for Hamas, but I'm just saying you need to look at the facts. Like, just take the emotion out of it for a second. Don't be pointing fingers like, ooh, what they did. When you force somebody to fight, you force somebody to fight. And let me tell you, those are not people we want to pick a fight with.
I agree.
They have zero sense of humor about this shit. And I mean zero.
Yeah.
And what do you expect their response to be? Let's talk. It's past talk.
So,
Okay, it's
yeah.
the talk days are long, long gone for those people. You know, and in my opinion, or they wouldn't be where they're at right now.
It's a tough spot politically with Gaza, and
Sure.
and there's a logic here that needs to be appreciated for both sides. So Israel, don't have to get into the whole deal, but essentially they give Gaza their autonomy in 05 or 06.
Right.
Gaza's this 20-mile strip of land. It is separated geographically from the West Bank, which is the other part where there's a Palestinian stronghold. There are 4 borders. North border is Israel. East border is Israel. West border is the sea, which 3 miles out in there is now Israeli territory. And they can't let the guys by there because then they could, if bad people got through there, they could come around and invade by land in Israel. The south border is Egypt, but more specifically, it is Sinai, which is fucking no man's land. It's a desert often controlled by terrorists who don't give a fuck about any Palestinians. Let's make that clear. So Israel creates this spot, right, and says, okay, you guys take that. We'll remove any Jewish people living there, whatever. It's a lose, 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 lose. Imagine if in 2006, Iraq were on our border in America. Right. Instead of Mexico, it's Iraq.
Right.
Would you ever let that border open?
I get you.
Right?
Yeah.
So what happens? Israel then can't let these people in. They also close off past 3 miles in the sea. My understanding, I think Anthony Bourdain talked about this back when he was alive, that the reef is like 6-9 miles out. Maybe people can correct that in the comments, or unless you could check it. But that means that any real fishing that happens, they can't do from Gaza because they can't even get out to where it is. It's past where they're going to get shot by Israeli boats because they're encroaching on Israeli territory. So you lock these people in, whatever it is, 2 million people into 20 miles. They can't really leave. They can't really build an economy. It's a self-defeating prophecy, but also what is Israel supposed to do? If they're trying to give them land to give on their own, they're at least giving them something, but then it's not like they can just constantly open up their borders and have total cross-trade and everything, when among the many good people that are living in Palestine, you have embedded as well people who are not good. This is one of those where I see it both ways there. Like when the Palestinians call it an open-air prison, I agree. When the Israelis say we gave it to them so, we could not have autonomy there and they could, but we can't really let them over our border all the time, I agree. It's so hard for me. Like there's no winner. There's no path to victory. Right. To me,
it is a highly convoluted situation. Mm-hmm. Far beyond, I don't think even any American, unless you're at this super high level at the State Department, even understanding what is really going. Like you may think, oh yeah, this is what's going on. No. There's underlying currents that you probably have no clue about that only the senior leadership know about, and man, all I can tell you is that situation going to go, in my opinion, is that situation going to go away? No. Never. Not in our lifetimes. And I pray for them that they do. I really do. Who needs to live like that, you're dealing with a terrorist organization they're not going to just throw their hands up and go, oh, you know what? My bad. You really think that's going to happen? No. Are you fucking kidding me? Like that ain't never going to happen. Hell's going to freeze over before that happens. So it's, how do you win? Like you said, it's a lose, lose, lose. I don't know how you can win or at least have a favorable conclusion where you're like, you know what? That was actually worth it. I don't even know. Again, I'm not a strategic planner kind of guy. I'm just looking at it at face value. Man, that's a bad situation, man. Any way you look at it. And I'll be honest with you, dude. Somebody asked me a couple years ago. They said, name 2 leaders in this world that you are like highly, that you hold in high esteem. And I named 2 women. One was Golda Meir.
The old Israeli prime minister from the 60s.
And the other one was Margaret Thatcher.
Oh, yeah.
The Iron Lady. Mm-hmm. I've read books about both of them. And these are, in my opinion, let me say it again, in my opinion, very strong, courageous leaders that in my opinion, served their country very, very well.
What do you think made Golda Meir so good?
I can tell you right now, dude. She was the one that greenlit the mission after the Munich massacre.
Yep.
And went to them and said, kill every one of those motherfuckers. Yep. There it is. Yep.
People can't see it off camera.
Do you know how big of balls you have to have, man or woman, doesn't matter, to green light a mission like that when the whole world is watching? Dude, you got my respect. You got my respect.
Yeah.
And Margaret Thatcher was the prime minister when the Iranian embassy got taken over in, I don't know what the date was, 72, I can't remember, and greenlit the SAS to go in and take down the Iranian embassy at Princess Gate on TV. They had, like,
she was a tough
the BBC
bitch,
was there, like video. I mean, you can see videos of this fucking shit going down. Like, dude, these were exemplary leaders, women, but I hold them in very, very high esteem. I didn't even mention 2 men. I mentioned 2 women.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny, right? But dude,
she was tough, man.
Bro, these are the kind of leaders that you need in our world today. You know what you just watch, and you need a wartime consigliere. Like, you can't be like, right? That's what you need now.
You're Italian. Come on now.
I know.
Consigliere. There you go.
But anyway, I that movie. If for those of you who are listening, if you've never watched Munich, I think you need to watch it.
And they have to say fictionalized story. Ain't nothing fictional about it, bro. That's very real.
They basically, Golda Meir basically greenlit their people to find these people wherever they were, whatever country they're in, and it wasn't a capture mission.
Yeah.
They were targeted assassinations. Like,
I do not want to create excuses for war crimes or anything that could happen that is beyond the pale. And as I said, I got a serious problem with some of the actions Israel's taking right now. If we're going to understand both sides, like the Palestinian side, we can absolutely understand because, you know, they basically lack the ability to have a central government and have their own country. And I get it. I don't even know what to say to that. On the Israeli side, they have often been left alone. And there's no better example than what you're talking about right now. I mean, you have the Olympics 27 years after the camps are freed in Germany. Okay, you want to show Germany's denazified, the world wants to give them a shot. All right, okay, fine. That's probably not what I would have done, but okay. And then all these Israeli athletes get taken hostage, 2 of them killed right away during the games. The games don't stop.
Correct.
The German police says, German government says, no, we got this. They have the Israelis there ready to help. At this point, Israel is known as having great special forces people, great intelligence, whatever.
Right.
No, you guys lay off.
Right.
Everyone gets killed.
That's right.
And the games go on, as I said.
Yeah.
So if you're Golda Meir sitting there, I can't imagine how lonely that's got to feel. You're like, shit, we're 27 years after this shit, and they're already forgetting about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. That creates a tough situation, and yeah,
I didn't even realize, to be honest with you, dude. I didn't even recognize what that was from until I saw that actor. I can't remember what his name is.
Eric Bana.
Yeah. He's a really freaking good actor. But yeah,
I'm gonna take a video here so we can loop this in while we're talking because people can't see this. It's off camera, but I have the 2 images of. You can see it now on YouTube probably, but I have the 2 images at the end where they're standing in front of the skyline in Manhattan. Yep. Very cool stuff.
Yeah. And I remember this scene. He was basically talking to him, and he's kind of like a quote unquote a case officer for the Mossad, and just trying to talk to him about, you know, what was going on. And like, he played a really great role. Yeah. He by far, that was his best role he ever played. And that would be very difficult. Playing that role because he was kind of like that retired guy, you know. What was he, like a bodyguard or something? I can't remember. It was they said he was a bodyguard. Yeah, Golda Meir's bodyguard, and
it's based on a guy Yuval. What's his last name? Can we look that up, Alessi? Who Munich is based on? He lives in Arizona now. Used to live in New York.
Yeah, amazing movie. I tell everybody to watch it. I said this is. And I've literally said, this is how you handle business. You know what? You're going to act like this. We're going to let the dogs of war out on your ass. And, heaven forbid, they find you.
It says Yuval Aviv.
Yuval Aviv, that's
yep,
it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the guy. He was, and there, there's all kinds of claims like made because they have to deny this stuff. I get it. So there's like, oh, he's a liar, all this stuff. But go look up the murders that happened in that movie. That's exactly how they happened.
Yeah, dude.
It was exactly.
But again, I have when like Netanyahu. I mean, look, dude, he's sitting in a hot seat right now. Like, he had to make a decision on the behalf of his country. And right, wrong, whatever, it's quite frankly none of our damn business. The way I look at it, I mean, it is, but it isn't. I mean, he has to do what's right for his people and what he feels what's right for his people. Not what's right for us. Let's just say this right now. Not what's right for our freaking country. What's right for his country.
Yes.
Period.
Part of the issue there is the people in this latest government that he has surrounded himself with, though, because he has surrounded himself, unfortunately, with a lot of scumbags, a lot of people. I mean, you see some of the quotes these guys say. There's no, I'm the last guy to be histrionic about things and take things out of concept, but some of the things that these guys say publicly, I'm talking about some of the people in his cabinet, are genocidal. I mean, you heard the guy talking about the nukes and whatever so casually, like, yeah, that's on the table. Get them out, or at least there's ethnic cleansing language happening there. And to me, it goes to show you, just like we were talking about something else earlier, it's about who you surround yourself with, and he is miscalculated on that. But to your point, if a terrorist attack happens on your soil, you're going to take action. Yeah. And yes, people are going to die, and it's ugly. It's horrible. I agree. It's just a matter of, and it's a hard question. What is that proportionate response? And I do think we've passed that. So, as we're talking right now, there have at least been some small days of mostly, not all the way, but mostly ceasefire to exchange some of these hostages. Right. That's positive. But you're also dealing with all these tunnels and stuff too. Right. I mean, how much do you know about that? Like the Hamas tunnels?
Not a whole lot. I've seen photos of them. They're quite extensive, probably more extensive than what the media is putting on. And what's really funny, what's not funny, what's very ironic is that certain special operations units in the very recent past have been tasked with fighting in that environment. Kind of funny.
Like down in the tunnels.
Fighting in subterranean, structures.
How do you even do that? Because one person can fit through a hallway. Aren't you just like caught right away?
Dude, it's not an environment I would want to fight in. You're in a tubular environment that you may or may not have a way to hide, or it just depends on the way these things are designed. But it's extremely restricting, and casualties in something like that are going to be very, very high. I don't care what unit you're in. You get in a tick in a tunnel like that, you're going to take serious casualties. So, I think leadership in our country saw stuff like this coming. Look, it's not just in Israel. There are other countries, I'm not going to mention them, that have very complex tunnel systems that are used. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. And quite frankly,
you're talking countries that aren't run by terrorists or something, like more normal countries.
Yeah, sure. And quite frankly, that is a skill set that I know for a fact is something that's important to modern day, quote unquote, urban warfare. And it was years ago. I mean, if you think that tunnels and sewer systems and things like that haven't been used in the past in other countries to move people surreptitiously from one place to another covertly without, being you kidding me?
El Chapo, baby.
I mean, seriously. Yeah. I mean, think about it. I'm not going to get into details about it, but you better believe it. That's a very, very covert, surreptitious way to move small elements and small teams through urban environments completely unobserved.
Alessi, can you Google how deep underground the Hamas tunnels are? Because that's always something I think about. Like when they were doing the 2nd Avenue subway, which maybe I'm never over there anymore. Maybe they're still doing that over in New York, meaning they're building however many feet that is. I'm gonna guess it's maybe 20 feet below ground or something like that.
Right.
You knew it was happening.
Right.
You could tell. I'm not just talking like the construction tape you'd see in certain places.
Right.
You could hear some of the shit.
Right.
So it always blows my mind that this stuff can be built. We're talking miles underground or something like that, and no one notices.
And keep this in mind too. And again, I don't want to get into details. Some of these tunnels have been there for many, many years. They're not new tunnels.
How deep? 60 to 80.
60 to 80 feet.
deep.
That's
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. Just think about, and again, not mentioning places, but think about some ancient cultures and ancient cities. There's tons of tunnels under. I mean, think about Italy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the Vatican, baby.
I mean, come on now. Like, if you don't think there's tunnels all over the freaking place, there, you're. So, again, not getting into a whole lot of detail about that. There's a ways to use that to your advantage if that's the environment you're working in. But that's not a place I'd want to fight. No.
And you see Joe Teti just going, go, 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 right down to the fucking tunnel.
This is where tactical patience would come in, man. Like you would have, look, dude, when you're doing like something that specific, you're going to have very unique SOPs and TTPs that's going to drive how you're going to fight in that environment. Like
Wait,
how,
what's TTP again?
Tactics, techniques, and procedures.
I was thinking trust the process. I know
Trust
that's not
it. That too.
That's our TTP.
You better trust the process, man. You know. But yeah. So like, it's a whole nother, challenge.
Yeah, that was one thing. The Vatican keeps coming up on a lot of podcasts now. I never did, but I've been talking about how when I lived in Rome, I lived like right by the Vatican, and I couldn't at the time. I didn't like appreciate. I mean, I knew it was very historical. I was like, "Oh wow, cool, the Vatican," but I didn't think about.
Well, you saw it all the time. Like if I went there, I'm like, "Oh, like,
right,
wow, yeah,
right." But like even the underworld of it, maybe, and what's down below there. I never really thought about that stuff at the time, but now, I'm really thinking about it all the time. And if you're familiar at all with the subway system, the metro system in Rome. Rome's a big city.
Right.
The metro system, I always joked, I wish it was like that here because it's so easy. It's an X. It's like that. It's basically got, unless it's changed since I've been there, it's basically got one line running top down diagonal one way and the other one running right across it that way. So you learn the subway system in 2 seconds. But thinking about it now, I'll have to go look at maybe we can pull up the map of the Rome metro system, Alessi. But I'd love to know if part of that is built in such a way, and it's built so simply because there are so many intricate underground tunnels that they can't be running into, which is like, whoa, baby. I start going all the way to like the rat lines of World War II.
I don't know how. Let me see.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, see that?
Interesting. Didn't know that.
Now, Alessi, if you look at the pictures right there, see the third one from the right? Yeah, click that one. This is basically what it is. See that? So there's like another little one running in the middle, but it's maybe that one's new, but it's basically like an X.
Yeah.
It doesn't, you know how New York
is.
Yeah,
it's all over. Same with Washington. It's all over the freaking place. Yeah.
That was always fascinating to me looking at it now. But back then it was just fascinating. It was like, oh, wow, cool. It's simple.
Yeah.
I
wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder why.
That's interesting.
You've kept one thing you've kept on mentioning though a few times that is a little off topic, but I did want to ask about it. You keep on shouting out like the British services for, I guess, like some of their special forces techniques combined with their spy techniques. Like what makes them mention in the same breath per se with like counterterrorism as Israel? Why are they so good?
Well, so I've actually had the privilege and opportunity to but operate with guys from SAS when I was in Iraq. They were there in the same compound. So I got to know some of these guys, very, one thing I'll tell you about those dudes, man, they had probably the funniest sense of humor of any freaking dudes I ever met. They were fucking funny guys. Anyway, what they did is they just took, that game to the next level. They were the ones that really got into the dynamics of hostage rescue. I mean, that's what their bread and butter is hostage rescue. They, for example, the selection process to get in the SAS, Delta basically took their selection process and made it their own. So think about that for a second. And of course, the guys, the original plank owners from Delta, trained a lot with the SAS guys to get like, how do you do this? How do you take down an airplane? How do you take down a train? How do you do this? So they were kind of like the first people that really honed it. Even though the Israelis were doing it prior, the British SAS guys really sharpened that sword, so to speak. And they're very good at it, obviously. If you want to watch a really good movie, watch the movie about the Princess Gate. I'm trying to remember the name of it. There's been several. One was very realistic, according to like interviews I saw with guys that were there, that were actually on that raid. But you can Google it and find it. You can just see how methodical. Yep, that's it right there. 6 days.
6 days.
Yep, that's a very, very good movie. You're not going to recognize any of the actors at all, but it is it's an excellent, excellent movie. I think it portrayed the regiment in a very, very good light, and it was an amazing hostage rescue. I mean, it's a couple things went wrong, but they flowed. Like one dude, if I'm not mistaken, he was rappelling down the backside of the building and got knotted up. Something happened with his carabiner, and he was just basically hanging there above a door that they were getting a breach or a window or something. And anyway, just like stuff like that. That's where those units make their money. Because anywhere else, that's like, uh-oh, and everything comes to a screeching halt. Right? Not there. Not at that level. It's just critical thinking skills come in. What do we do? I think they cut the guy down something very quickly, and another guy got caught on fire going through a window or some shit, like I think a curtain or something fell on him. And anyway, just dude kept flowing. And everybody talks about, and we can get into training stuff here real second, but like everybody talks about, the tenets of CQB: speed, surprise, violence of action. Well, actually, there's a fourth tenet that nobody wants to talk about, and that's momentum. You have to keep the momentum. You can't just get bogged down in a hallway or in a room or, whatever. You have to keep moving. When you become stagnant in that environment, bad shit happens. So like when I've taught it and I talk about, the tenets of CQB, yeah, it is speed, surprise, violence of action, but I also add in momentum. And I think it's very applicable and I didn't come up with that, just an FYI, it's not my thing. I've heard other people talk about it, people that I respected. I'm like, you know what? That fucking makes sense, because that's absolutely what I experienced. Like you cannot like come to a screeching halt in a hallway, or especially in a hostage rescue type situation, like where you have to get to the to the hostages quickly. You can't be fiddle farting around in a hallway, and like you got to get there immediately. And how do you pick up that momentum? Well, that's what flashbangs and distraction devices are for. And anyway, not getting into all the tactics, but anyway. But a lot of people don't talk about it, and it's really strange because, and I talk about really experienced guys, and to me, I ain't the most experienced guy in the world, but to me, it makes sense. Yeah. Speed, absolutely. Surprise. Yes. Violence of action. Yes. And a lot of people even get that third one wrong. Like, what is violence of action? And it's actually, to me, a mindset. It is an overwhelming mindset that I am better trained than you. I'm physically stronger than you. I'm better. And that just gives me that ability to deliver like violence of action on the target, like wham, like there's no hesitation. There's no doubt. When I come through this door, you're going to lose, period. Like that to me, and some people may disagree with me, but to me, that's what it means. Cause that's what I felt when they talked about it. Like violence of action was a mindset with me. And did I actually have that day one? No, I did not. Didn't have it, had it a little bit, but as I got better and better and, worked with guys that exemplified that, I'm like, the kind of light bulb went off. Like, I get it now. Like, you're fucked. like when these people come for you, you have no chance. And that's what it is. Like, you literally don't have a snowball's chance in hell of surviving. And that's, to me, that's what violence of action is. Like, it's just it's a mindset. It's very powerful, dude. It's very powerful.
When Remy was in here, and I remember you had some similar sentiments too, but he put it like exact on the point. He was talking about how at the highest levels, like in the Navy SEALs, if they've been able to identify like one core gene that makes someone, oh, this person's going to be in and they're going to make it and they're going to be the guy they want. He said, no, they haven't.
No.
There's some intangibles that can only be seen once they're put
That's right.
in the spotlight for something. Right. Not necessarily on the battlefield yet, but some of the stuff like what you laid out last time, some of the stuff you even get put through. There's a thing, you can't say what it is, but it's not tangible.
And dude, let me tell you, you can't just look at somebody and
right.
go, that guy's a stud.
Right.
Let me tell you, those guys are usually the first ones that quit.
Yep.
In my experience,
That's
then you look
too.
at this, oh, really?
Yep.
And then you look at this guy like, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And then guess who's standing at graduation?
Yeah. He said there was one guy, I think this was Remy who said this. He said there was one guy who was like hardcore, crazy triathlete, someone that they had been asking to come do buds for a long time.
Sure.
And he finally agreed to do it. And everyone thought, of course.
He's going to smoke it. He was gone.
He was gone.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, dude, that's the whole, this is what I coach people. It's great to be physically strong, which you have to be in a special operations, being in special forces or SEALs or whatever. You have to be physically strong. Give me a break, dude. But without that mental toughness, it's like having a Ferrari body with a Volkswagen engine in it. It just ain't gonna work.
Yep.
And when you start heaping, especially a program like Buds, Buds is an amazing, I've never been to it, but it's an amazing selection course to get to the SEAL teams. And it's very, very well thought out. And its sole function is, I'm sure like the first phase of it during Hell Week, it's just to weed out the guys that may be mentally or physically strong enough to do it, but they just don't have it mentally. They just don't. And I'm sure you could ask anybody, Shawn or any of these guys that have been in the SEAL teams, just like SFAS selection. It's a physically demanding, wear your ass down day after day after day, where it gets to a point where, yeah, you're a physical stud, but you're past that now. You got blisters on your feet that are this big. I lost all my freaking toenails. I had a stress fracture. I mean, that physical fitness is not going to get you through that. Mm-hmm. It's just not. Your mind is going to get you through that. You've got to take yourself to a place where you just kind of, the pain is still there, but it's dulled. I don't know how to explain it.
No, you're explaining it beautifully.
Yeah, it's dulled. It's like, yeah, this fucking sucks, but it's dulled. Or you're concentrating on somebody else. Like, and that's why they're so big on team stuff. Like, I would concentrate on another guy that maybe was having a trouble and focus on him. Hey, dude, let me help you out. And you're not worrying about your pain right now. I'm worried about him. That helps. Does it make it go away? No. Does it dull it? Yeah, it sure does. Yeah, it sure does. To a manageable point where you're like, I can deal with this for another day. And then you get to the next day. I can make it to dinner. You know what I mean? That's how you make it. That's how you make it through courses like that.
So you're gamifying it in a way.
Kind of, but you're not looking at like graduation. Like I looked at SFAS, like the guy's like, dude, just make it to dinner every night. Just say, I'm going to show up to dinner. I'm showing up to dinner every night. That's it. Okay. You can't be thinking a week or 2 weeks or 3. Like dude, you can't. If you do, I think that's dangerous. I think you're biting off more than you can chew, but just, I'm going to make it to dinner. You make the dinner like, oh, cool. I made it. I can make it one more day. Mm-hmm. One more day. And that's how you get through courses. And dude, I'll be the first one to tell you, I was not prepared for SFAS. I showed up with brand new boots. As a matter of fact, I remember when I dumped my shit out, the one instructor was like, don't even unpack. He looked at me and said, don't even unpack. Yeah. And so I suffered, a lot of guys, there's guys there are guys that make it through selection courses like SFAS and Ranger School and Buds that come out the other side kind of like, yeah, that sucked, but they just were prepared mentally, physically, emotionally. And I'm sure you could ask guys besides myself. They're like, yeah, there were a few guys like that just, meh. You know, I wasn't one of them. You know, I suffered. I wasn't prepared. I didn't take the time to break my boots in. I didn't do enough ruck marching.
You know what, though? In getting to know you over the past year, you're one of these guys that there's something in you that, and we see this in a lot of guys who do high-level military stuff. It's not just that you crave the action, you also crave the challenge needing to get even bigger as you go. Like you crave the difficulty of things. It's almost like that's that conquering gene that we all are born with because we're animals, right? There's something deep inside of us that makes us need to feel like we got to the top of something. And you're always chasing that through, for a long time, it was adventure vis-a-vis serving your country, but it's never really stopped. I mean, you do it now with your teaching in a lot of ways, constantly trying to push the boundaries depending on who the clientele is of what you can do. But you know, this was, we haven't talked about it yet on camera. We should probably do it now. Like, this is what dual survival was too. I mean, obviously this is a reality show on Discovery, but we've already put up at least one of the pictures. Like, you really went to these places. You really got dropped into the worst spots. You really, yes, you had camera crews following you around, but 1 minute you're in the middle of a barren, dry desert that's 127 degrees. The next minute you're on an ice cap in fucking Nova Scotia or something and with nothing else around, and you have to survive. And to me, sitting at home, that shit seems crazy to me, right? Like, I enjoy my air conditioning and, you know,
so do I.
A little bit of heat once in a while. But I can't take my eyes off it. It's very cool to watch. Like, before you did that show, obviously you did crazy service where you did have to get dropped into most dangerous places and live off the land sometimes and stuff like that. But did you have an interest in that kind of thing previously that even predated your military days?
To be on TV?
No. To do things that, you know, to be like a survivalist, to be someone who has to go into wild places and do wild shit.
No. Wasn't.
Really?
No. I liked to hunt and fish when I was a kid. I used to, you know, I was a big bow hunter growing up, and I loved being out in the woods. Don't get me wrong. Like, that was my sanctuary because I wasn't an athlete. I was a train wreck growing up as a kid. You know, I never played sports, and I was that guy. Like, if they had a pickup baseball game, like, oh, you get Teti. Like, I was that kid. But I was always very comfortable in the woods, especially at night, which was weird. Like, I felt I should be there. Like, I felt very safe and very comfortable, where I think other kids would be like, this is kind of creepy. But to be honest with you, man, I've always had a very big chip on my shoulder.
That makes sense.
Growing up, you know, just never had the confidence as an athlete. I never had the confidence as a you know, getting good grades because I didn't. You know, shitty family life. You know, parents divorced. Just, you know, and again, I'm not saying it's just I'm pity. I wouldn't want any other way. It's just the cards that I was dealt, and I think that chip on my shoulder came at a very, very early age. Probably like when my parents divorced when I was 7. And it just, it's just stuck with me. And so, like, losing to me is extremely distasteful. I don't like the feeling of losing, especially when I have people telling me, you're going to lose. Like my family did. You're not going to make it through Marine Corps boot camp. Like, straight up. I had cousins and uncles saying, like, you're going to embarrass the entire family. Don't do this. That fucking pissed me off. It pisses me off right now just talking about it. And I've done it. And it still pisses me off. You know what I mean? Like, it's a weird thing. And I'll tell you one other thing that was said to me that I didn't bring up on the last podcast, but I remember when I was going through the little psychological piece of when I was in Grand Branch and talking to a psychologist, they're looking for what was referred to as a predatory gene. So I was like, you know, what the fuck is that? And the only way I could explain it to you is it's not the thrill of the kill, it's the chase. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's not the last. I want to like a lion. I want to chase your ass down. That's the thrill of it. The last, that's over and done with like that. That gets me excited. That makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I like that feeling. I know it sounds kind of odd.
No, it sounds exactly
But
right.
it's a predatory type gene that they're looking for, or mentality, whatever you want to call it, because understand that's what it takes to get to the last, to put yourself in the position to flex cuff somebody and say, you're coming with me, or pep, 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 pep.
Done.
Yeah, it's one or the other, but you have to get to that point, and you have to like the thrill of the chase to get there. I hope that makes sense to people who are listening.
100%.
Yeah, and if it don't, I may be explaining it incorrectly.
No, it's good.
But I think that's another thing. I've always had that weird thrill of just pursuing something and trying to get good at it and failing, obviously, many, many times growing up. You know, I just I wasn't that guy. Like, dude, I was not the poster boy. Let me tell you, I was not, and I am not the poster boy for special operations. I was very lucky that I was with the right people at the right time to mentor me, to take me under their wing and make me a better version of myself that I would have never been on my own. Never. Without the help of these people. And you're going to be interviewing one of them, without mentioning his name, big time mentor of mine. Without him, I would not be a better version of myself.
Wow.
Oh yeah. And there's been several people in my life like that. And, the credit actually belongs to them. I am nothing more than a person of experiences and just being around, high performance people where, good isn't good enough. You raise the bar, even if it's that much, you're raising it, and then a little more and a little more. Like, I would have never, most people don't get to live a life like that, where it's like, I'm good at what I do and I'm good enough. That's most people. At an early age, I wasn't that person, but it was just really frustrating because I couldn't be that person. I wanted to be it. I just didn't have it physically and mentally. You know what I mean? And it just took years and I'm still not there. I mean, give me a break, dude. I'm work in progress. I always tell it to my friends. I'm like, man, it's a zero. I call it a zero-sum game. It's like a moving target you can never hit.
Right.
Like, you're just never quite catching up to it, And I like that. I think if I ever got to the point, Julian, that I was like, I've done it all. I can't even say that. It's so distasteful to me because it's like, there's always something else you can do. There's always another Everest you can climb, so to speak, whatever that is in your life. But I think when people get complacent and they just get comfortable where they are, you kind of like die. Like, to me, like, you're just existing. You're not living. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
You and I both know the difference of existing and living. Two completely different things. I don't want to exist.
You live.
I want to live, dude. I want to live, and I try to live every day. And I said this before, like when I go to the gym, I've got a picture of my friend Mike that died in that helicopter crash.
What happened there?
We were shooting another show, long story short, and you're going to get to interview one of the guys that was there.
That's Dale Comstock, by the way. I'll say the name. I'm excited to bring him in.
Yeah, Dale's been a longtime friend of mine. Been there, done that. Makes me look like an amateur. He was in Ground Branch with me. We coach people together, and he's been a very, very good friend of mine through thick and thin. And I've learned a tremendous amount from him. Tremendous amount. I couldn't even calculate it. But anyway, it was me, him, and Mike. And long story short, this is so ironic. It was about 3:00 in the morning, very cold. It was in California, and there was a scene that required a helicopter. And the bird had landed. The pilot briefed everybody, and I'll never forget this, man. It was me, Dale, and Mike standing there, and the helicopter was warming up, blades were turning, and I said, "Who's been in a helicopter crash?" I'm not joking. You can't even make this shit up. And Dale said, "Well, he was in a Black Hawk that crashed in Panama. Actually, I think he broke his back. Like he was in a full body cast. So he'd been in a helicopter crash, and Mike was in a helicopter crash in Ranger Battalion. And so I'm like, well, I haven't been in one, so I'm going to go first. So it was me, the pilot, and a cameraman behind me, and we went and did our scene, threw a couple rucksacks out, came back. And when we landed, Mike was standing there. And I literally said before I left, you just guys figure out who's going next. Just flip a coin, whatever. And so be it. Mike went on the bird. And so I got off the bird. I went into this warming, they had like a warming trailer because it was really cold. They had like hot chocolate and coffee and stuff in there. And I walked in, I heard the bird take off. And about 5 minutes later, this young lady came in, hysterical, crying that she said she heard on the radio that the helicopter just crashed. And I'm like, what? And she was like literally hysterical. And I'm like, give me a set of keys. We had a bunch of cars and I knew where they were going to film. It was like this dried out lake bed. So I got in a vehicle and I drove there. And it was literally, like a half a mile away. And so I drive down into it and I'm looking, I don't see anything. And I go up on the hill, I don't see anything. And I'm like, this is bullshit. So I drive back down, and as I'm driving across, I look out and I see a flashlight, like a couple hundred yards away. I'm like, oh, they must have just had a hard landing or whatever. Like it just hadn't clicked yet. So I get out of the car and I start walking. And as I'm walking, the first thing I notice, I start smelling gasoline, or JP4. I start smelling fuel. I'm like, they must have ruptured their fuel tank or something, whatever. And I keep walking, and then I'm getting closer, and I can start seeing pieces of fuselage of the helicopter. And as I get closer, then I can see the fuselage. All the props are tore off of it. It was in a face-down configuration and just a mess. And Dale was standing there, and there was another gentleman who was a former SEAL that was actually on the show as well. And I went, hey, Dale. It was very casual. I mean, you can ask him. I said, dude, give me a sit rep. And he just looked at me and he said, they're all dead. Killed them all. And, dude, even to this day, I have a hard time, like...
You have survivor's guilt over that?
Oh, fuck. What do you think? But yeah, and to this day, I really don't know what happened, but, Dale will tell you the story too. Like, I think he was up on the high ground. He said he saw the helicopter fly right over him, went down into this dry riverbed. And so anyway, yeah. And, I just remember saying to him, where's Mike's body? And he says, it's over there. It's about 30, 40 yards away from the plane crash. But the cameraman was right next to the fuselage. Very obvious he was dead. The pilot was still in his seat, strapped to his seat on his side about 20 yards away. And then Mike, his body was 30, 40 yards away. And it was crazy too. I remember as I was walking, I kept hearing a voice saying, medic, medic. And it was Dale. And, I didn't really understand at the time the gravity of what happened.
You're not in a war zone.
Nope.
This is supposed to be just all fun.
Yep.
Wow, man.
Yeah, it was horrific. It was horrific. The worst thing I ever saw.
So I'm sorry to hear that.
That's terrible. And
what happened to did they determine pilot error or something?
To this day, I don't really know what happened. I can just tell you when I was on the bird with the guy, I was sitting right next to the pilot. He wasn't flying with nods. He was flying with instruments. It was very, very dark. It was a very, very dark night, like zero lume. So I don't know, but I was told that this pilot, was a very experienced pilot. Obviously, they're going to vet people flying helicopters and making sure that they've been maintenance, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I didn't own the helicopter. I didn't own the rental company. But supposedly this guy was a very experienced pilot for filming those types of scenes at night. And what I think might have happened, and again, dude, I'm not a pilot, but I've talked to other people, is the bird was flying. It was cold out. Remember, I told you it was 30 degrees maybe. He was flying up here and then went over the lake bed, which is all cold air, and probably lost lift. Again, I'm spitballing right now, guys. I'm not a pilot. I don't know jack about jack when it comes to stuff, but I'm just being told from other people that do have that kind of experience. Because remember, cold air sinks, hot air rises, and so he might have went over that area because it was like a big dip, went down and just lost lift and just nosed in. So yeah, man, that whole thing, I went to Mike's funeral and dude, it was just, life can be so fucking cruel. Like, dude, did I expect that? But let me, I do want to say something. And I want to say this because this person saved me probably from a lifetime of medication. When I went to Mike's funeral, Mike had an amazing wife, he had kids, an amazing family, mother and father. I remember distinctly at his wake after the funeral, his dad came up to me and he says, "Come here." And this is his father. He just lost his son. He said, "Come here, take a walk with me." I said, "Yes, sir." And
take your time, man.
It's to this day, it's so hard, man. It's really hard to see a dear friend of mine die like that. But anyway, his father just said to me, "Joe, Mike wanted to do this with you. You didn't force him to do this. And I know what you're thinking right now." He goes, "You need to get that shit out of your mind right now." He goes, "This is not your fault." I mean, dude, who does that? Who does that?
Can't even imagine being in his shoes. I don't even have kids. So
that's what I'm saying. How do you have the courage and the strength to just take somebody off to the side after you just lost your son and take the time to freaking say that to somebody?
Because he's a good person, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, he also knows that's the case. Yeah. It gives him peace too. And he does. I think the last thing, and again, I have been fortunate in my life to not have to sit in a situation like that where someone extremely close to me died like that. But I think that when you are in that kind of pain, as that guy was, and you were too, obviously, the last thing you want is the casualties of the war of that pain. You don't want other people to have to hang on to things that have nothing to do with them. Because I know that has to be playing with your mind all the time that, oh, what if I had been second and he had been first? That's a human thing.
Right.
But you did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Life, this is where, unfortunately, and none of us have a good answer for it, life just fucking blows sometimes, man.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes great people don't make it.
Yeah.
And
good people die. Yeah, good people die.
It's the cruelest thing ever.
Yeah. But I gotta be honest with you, dude. That was probably the kindest act in my entire life.
It's very cool. They did that at that stage too.
Because I'll tell you what, dude, I'd be fucked. I'd be mentally fucked right now because of the guilt. I mean, it's impossible to put into words, but just kind of replay what I just told you and imagine like the conversation we had. And anybody been in a helicopter accident? Like, you can't even make this shit up.
Yeah.
And 10 minutes later, I'm standing over his body because a helicopter crashed. But yeah, it was a testament to Mike's family and how Mike was. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was a guy that I try to exemplify. And when I work out, I told you his picture every day is in my gym bag, and it sits up right on my gym bag. So when I go get water, he's looking right at me. That's cool. And the reason I use him is, now I've weaponized it, is because every day he used to call me, like 6 o'clock in the fucking morning. "Wake up, Skippy, time to go to the gym." Except Sundays when he went to church. Every day he called me. And I'd be just getting my lazy ass out of bed. He's already at the gym. Do you see what I mean? So I took a very tragic, painful situation and weaponized it. It took me a while. Let me tell you, it took me a while. But it has served me well. And I work out now like I'm not going to make it home. And people ask me, well, who is that guy? Who's that guy? I said, well, it was a friend of mine. Well, why do you have his picture? And I tell him. And they're like, that's really, like, I had one kid go, that's really morbid. I'm like, dude.
No.
10 more years from now, when you experience a little life's shitty sides, maybe you'll come back and say, oh, I get it now.
There's nothing wrong
No,
with
there's
that.
not at all, dude. It's a tribute to him, and I use it to strengthen me because I do work out now like I'm not going to make it home.
I can tell. Christ, that fucking Vane's been aiming a goddamn 45 at me all day.
But it's one of those things where I hope anybody listening, and I mean, look, dude, I'm not embarrassed to get emotional about this stuff. I'm a human being. It was painful, and it hurts right now just thinking about it because he was one of my closest friends, and he'd been to war, been to Ranger Battalion, SF, like he'd done it all to die. Like, dude, it's one of those things where I can be 99 freaking years old in my deathbed and still can't come to terms with it. But because his father took that 5 minutes probably saved me a lifetime of torment. Again, it's still emotional for me, but I can't even imagine where I would be emotionally if he wouldn't have done that.
Have you ever talked with his dad since then?
Once. Yeah, I have. And dude, I'll be honest with you. I've seen their family once. It's just, dude, it is so painful. I've gone to his grave before alone. No one's even known I've done this because I obviously went to his funeral. And it's one of those things where it's very difficult to look in the face of people that you've done. I hadn't done it, but I feel responsible. I've caused them so much pain. It's hard to even look at them. No, it's not my fault. I don't know how to explain.
But
right,
you didn't
you know what
that.
I mean? But in my mind, like if I could rewind it, dude, I would have got on second. Like seriously, if God would have said, Joe, here's what's about to happen.
Of course.
This plane's going to crash. Either you or your butt. Send him first.
Send me out, yeah.
I would have, you know what I mean? Like, so like, it's very, very difficult to experience that. And I'll be honest with you, man, of course I've talked to people about this. Yeah. Did I talk to somebody, a professional about it? Yeah, I sure did.
Good.
You know? Oh yeah. And for those of you listening right now, let me just give you a little word of advice. Don't be that person. And I'm strong enough. You know what? You're a human freaking being. Okay. You're not a robot. We're not artificial intelligence. We have emotions. Okay. When you experience something, whatever it is that emotionally wrecking and you can't handle it, I highly suggest you go talk to somebody. Yeah, maybe family members can help you with it. Maybe. It wasn't helping me. It just wasn't, and I talked to Dale about it, and you can ask Dale when you talk to him. It put the kibosh to him to think about it. They're literally to flip coins, like you go or me, he'd be dead. He'd be dead. It would have been his funeral. And I'm sure he'll tell you his version on it. And Dale's a tough son of a bitch, dude.
Yeah, he is.
Okay? He's physically and mentally one of the strongest men I know. And you ask him about that and see what he says. Because believe me, I've had many a conversation with him alone. I visited him down in Florida and we talked about it. And he gets kind of pale-faced talking about it. It's a very scary event that happened where literally the flip of a coin, you lived or died,
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, anyway, think about the context of your whole career though, too. How many, I can't imagine sitting in your seat, being all the places you were. Like this is one obviously where you lost someone after your career too. I mean, it's not on the battlefield either, but let's put them all together for a second. All the bullets that whizzed by your head that could have been 2 inches this way or 2 inches, the other way, and things are different, or the bullets that didn't whiz by a friend's head that took them out. Because last time you talked about guys you lost along the way in your career, and that bothers you every bit as much. It's like, I can't imagine dealing with the gravity of it, but as someone who's not dealing with it and gets to hear someone like you from the outside talk about this, I hope you understand, like it's very clear to me, you did everything you did in your career and in life at full force with your full heart behind it for the guy next to you, and you've come out to be able to talk about this now and be alive and have every limb, and that's a beautiful thing. But you know, the people you lose along the way, I can't imagine what that pain is. But that's not on you.
Yeah,
it's not. And
Right.
and I'm sure that had, as you've laid out, it keeps you up at night sometimes thinking about, well, what if it were me or whatever. But you know, the best you can do is live your life to be an example to others and also make those people proud. And you're doing that.
Yeah. I
That's what
appreciate
matters.
that, man. Yeah, I try to honor guys that I've lost, friends of mine I've lost, Mike, and just living the best life I can. And just because that's what they would want, you know.
Mhm.
I've literally gone to the gym, no joke, with a kidney stone and puking in the garbage can. Dude, I'm not kidding.
I believe you.
Yeah, and like I've been very, very lucky that demon that I had on my shoulder was removed by his father, because I'm here to tell you, bro, it was overpowering. Like I can't even. It was like I was walking around in a cloud. Like I couldn't focus on anything except guilt. Guilt. Like he had 5 kids. Like, matter of fact, when I went over to his body, there was a couple things. He had a radio on him that was broken. I kept that, and I kept one of his shoes. But one of the other things that I kept, and I found a shirt, because his shirt had been torn off in his jacket, but was this thing that his son made. I think it's like a 1-year-old or 2-year-old son. I can't remember, but it was like these little chits, good for one hug, good for dude. Oh my God. It was just, it would stop a Mack truck in its tracks. It was so bad. I saw it laying there and I'm like, I'm keeping this. So I have his shoe, the radio, and those notes from his son. And I have them in a very special place. I don't look at it often, but sometimes when I need realigned perspective, like, hey, get your fucking head out of your ass and quit feeling sorry for yourself. I will. Nobody knows where it's at in my home, and no one's gonna know. But I'll go look at it, and it's like instantaneous, like a light switch. Click. Yeah, instantaneous. In a split second, it happens. And I'm glad I kept it, because it is a physical thing that I can touch and see.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, one of the things that was bothering me, even to this day, and not all the time, but like sometimes when I smell gasoline, when it first happened for probably 6 months, every time I went and popped gas, it was because the smell of gasoline
takes you back.
Yeah. Smell is the strongest emotion, or the strongest sense.
Jim DiOreo's talked about that a lot.
People don't know that.
Yeah.
It's not what you hear or see, it's what you smell.
Yep.
And
Ryan
so,
Tate talked about that too.
Yeah. And so, every now and then, dude, it'll take me back to me walking through the brush at night and smelling gasoline.
What happens when that sets in? Does it kind of take you over and you hallucinate? Or
No, it just kind of, I don't get caught up in the moment of what happened. It just makes me remember. Like, it just takes me for a couple seconds, takes me back to, like, I can just close my eyes and just see like a bunch of, sagebrush and sand and smelling the gasoline.
I can see you seeing it right now.
Huh?
I can see you seeing it
Oh
right
yeah.
now.
I don't get caught up in it. Thank God. I don't get taken out of the moment, so to speak, but it's enough for me to think about it, and I'll be honest with you. I don't not want to stop thinking about it. I know that sounds really weird.
No, I understand.
I don't want to. It gives me strength now. It gives me strength when I think about it and I see how fragile life can be. and how quick the light switch can be turned off.
Yes.
You know, I talk to people all the time. Just because you're 30 years old and you're in stud shape and you're this and you got money, that truck driver driving down the road that just fell asleep at the wheel and makes you a hood ornament, you're done.
In an instant.
So, you know.
God, it's so weird.
Dude, it's true. And I can give you many. Dude, there was a bad accident down the road from where I live a month ago. Whole family wiped out. Guy crossed, literally down 24-27. The guy fell asleep, crossed, boom, head on, killed the whole family. And, you know, like, do you think they knew that was going to happen? No, didn't. But yeah, man, that's another thing I don't know why this is coming up, but we're just kind of free flowing right now.
This is great. Keep going.
But, you know, I remember after Mike passed, you know, this is really hard for men to do, but not women. But for the guys that are listening, if you've got close friends, I mean close friends that you've known for years and you love them as friends, tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them. Don't let your ego get in the way. Tell them, hey, man, I love you. And I did that. And I remember one of the buddies I said that to, I thought he hung up the phone. I'm like, hello? And he's like, what did you say? And I said, I love you, dude. I love you as a friend. I'm glad you're in my life. Dude, I think that's really important. Because guess what I didn't get a chance to do with Mike? Didn't get a chance to say that to him.
Yeah.
Because my ego.
I don't know. Well,
you know what I mean?
You got to
it's
give yourself a little credit.
But I mean, whatever it was.
You have the perspective to know that's something you want to do now because you didn't.
100%.
But it wasn't out of a bad place that you didn't do.
No, but now after that tragedy, it has opened my eyes to like, you know what? You need to do this. And just as a person, like tell your mother and father, your brothers and sisters, you love them because guess what? Someday you're not going to be able to.
You don't have them.
Yeah, they're gone. And I'm not trying to be morbid here, but that's life. You know, that's what happens. We all die. And it's a terrible thing known if I would have it's too late. If I should have, would have, could have, didn't, too late. You can cry over somebody's grave all you freaking want. Doesn't matter. It's too late.
Yeah, and the odd part about it, too, is you don't want to think about life in fear of the morbid.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
It's a tough, but what you're saying is very important. I don't want to be misheard here. It's just like I look at my life and, you know, I've had some awful losses along the way, but I think compared to like a lot of people I know, it's been a really good life, right? Like I haven't had, I don't even want to put these things in the universe, but you can use your imagination
Sure.
out there.
Yeah,
you understand what I mean?
Yep.
And I find myself thinking about that sometimes because I'm like, I try not to get into this zone, but I'm like, when is that going to happen? Mm-hmm. When is that unexpected, that clock going to strike midnight, right? And and you don't know how you'll deal with it till you do, but on the way there, I try to stay conscious of that because I try to be that person who just so much as sends the text. I mean, like you know how busy I am. We talked about this today. I don't need to relitigate that. We're all busy, right? Everyone's busy. Everyone's got shit going on, whether it's their job, their family, or a combination, whatever it is.
Right.
But like I will be sitting here sometimes in the studio editing late at night and I'll be like, damn, I haven't talked to that motherfucker in a year. And I'll send it off because it's even like a karma piece in the universe. Like I need to make sure that he or she is doing well right now.
Dude, that's good.
You know?
That's good.
I hope I do it enough because like you said, when you get to that moment, if you feel like you didn't, it's heavy.
Yeah. Everybody says, oh, I don't want to live with regret. That is regret.
Yes.
Let me just tell you right now, that is 100% regret shit right there. Like, if I would have just taken 10 seconds. Hey, bro, how you been? I haven't talked to you in a while.
Yep. I had I think a good example of that. I lost my grandmother somewhat recently, and about 3-4 weeks before she died, I prioritized taking my grandma and grandpa out to dinner.
Good on you, man.
And it's weird because she was unbelievably spry and everything. You didn't ever know anything was starting to go wrong. But what was happening was her mind, she hadn't had Alzheimer's yet, but it was
getting there.
Right, going to be there. You know what I mean? And I remember sitting at dinner with her that night, and looking across, and she moved great. She acted great. Everything was great. You'd never know anything was wrong. But I'm looking at her, and for the first time, it's like the lights are on, but she's not all the way home. She knew who I was. She knew what I did. She knew shit about me, but she's not all there. And I remember thinking to myself, it is just like in that moment, not even being present for a moment, like stepping out and being like, it is a really good thing that I am here and doing this right now. And goddamn, maybe this will be the last time. I remember thinking that.
Wow.
And it was unexpected when she died a month later, but
think that was a coincidence?
No,
it wasn't.
And that's why, like
that's not a coincidence.
I have such peace over that.
Good.
You know, I got to enjoy my grandmother for
That's
so many years in my life. Like, I'm so blessed. But I've had such, it's a good example for me personally, because I've had such peace over her death in that way. I wish she was still here. I miss her like crazy. But I don't have that regret. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you don't.
Yeah.
It's a terrible type of regret, because it's like it's a regret that you can't replace with something. You know what I mean? You can't just go, well, I regret this, but I'm going to do this and take. There is no trump card you can throw on the table.
That's right.
It's just, it is what it is, and there it is, and it's in a box, and it's there for the rest of your life. And so, anyway, I just, man, I think everything we're talking about, I think this is very important. I mean, the people understand that. Just don't take people for granted, man.
100%.
You know what? Don't take them for granted. And for those of you guys that are listening, try it. Try it out for size. You might like it. It feels good. I like my best friends that know I care about them. I do.
Well, they do.
You know what I mean?
Guess what? This lives forever too. They know now.
Yeah. I mean, I want them to
already
know
did,
that they're important to me, and that they make me happy, and I'm blessed to have them in my life. I think that's so important, man. It's just, we got enough bullshit and stress in our lives to put that out there. It just feels good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And feeling good, I think that's a healthy thing.
100%. Well, I appreciate you sharing all that too. That's a heavy thing, and like I said, I hope you do know you're carrying the memory of Mike well, and I think that's a beautiful thing. But on a lighter note, we started
moving on.
We started.
Can we laugh a little bit now?
Yes,
no, just kidding. Just kidding.
Got heavy in here for a minute. But we had started on that, getting into a little bit of the dual survival stuff, and you at least started on talking about it. But how did that opportunity even come up? Like, how did you get offered to do this and drop around the world?
So first.
All right, guys, that takes us to the end of part 1 of 2 of my new sit-down with Joe Teti. That's right, we have a second episode coming, and that conversation was completely different. We talked all about Joe's time hosting Dual Survival on Discovery Channel and how to survive out in the craziest places in the wilderness around the world. It was a riveting convo. So if you're not already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and hit that notifications bell so that you find out when that new episode comes out. Also, if you're not following the show on Instagram, make sure you head over there and follow @Julian Dorey Podcast, where we post daily clips from the show every single day. And also, you can follow me on my personal page @JulianD.Dorey. Both links are in the description below. And finally, if you haven't seen Joe Teti's first episode with me from last June, the link is on the screen right now, and it's in the description below.